followed by the assessment of the pilot on adjusted co-sharing arrangement, followed by a note on the organization of the 7th GEF Assembly. Then we will go on with other businesses. Information on the celebration of the 30th anniversary and summary of the chair. With that, we will close this week for the time being regarding the GEF Trust Fund. And today we will begin the 31st LDCF SCCF Council meeting. We will go through 4 agenda items, and we will finish the council, 31st council LDCF SCCF tomorrow morning. So this is what we have for today. And let's begin today's work with agenda item number 7, work program for the GEF Trust Fund. After the presentations from Gustavo and his team, I will inform of a small adjustment on the proposed draft decision for council, but I will do that at the end. So let me invite Gustavo Fonseca to introduce document GF/C 61/06 work program for the GEF Trust Fund. Good morning, Gustavo. The floor is yours.
Good morning. Can you see my presentation?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
All right. So it's a real pleasure to be here with you.
Please switch settings, Gustavo.
I need to switch. Okay. How does it look now?
No.
Yes, good to go.
Fine now? Good, good. Thank you. So again, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you all. It's a real pleasure to be here with you today, introducing the work program. This is the 7th work program in the GEF 7 cycle, and this or the second to last work program in the 4-year cycle of GEF 7. This work program requests from the GEF Council the approval of $174.6 million, accompanied by 16.1 million associated agency fees, for a total of 190.7 million. This represents 5% of the entire GEF 7 replenishment. We are at the 42nd months of the 48 months of GEF 7, meaning that we are at 87% timeline mark of the funding cycle, which will end in June of 2022. If the work program is approved, as it has been presented to you, the overall STAR utilization will reach 84% of all STAR resources in GEF 7 and 87% of all GEF 7 resources, which of course also include international waters, chemicals and waste, SGP, and the NGI. Overall, these numbers express a very healthy programming result, particularly in light of the challenges that were brought up by the COVID-19 pandemic, as we all know. On behalf of the Secretariat, I would like to extend our sincere thanks and congratulations to the countries, the agencies, the partners, the Council, who are responsible collectively for this outcome. I should also note that significant resources will be directed to vulnerable countries in Africa and Asia and across LDCs and SIDS. Finally, I would like to warmly thank the excellent work that our scientific and technical advisory panel staff has provided, filtering and reviewing this work program and screening the projects contained in it. We are very encouraged by the co-financing level that this work program is expected to leverage, which is over 1.4 billion of total co-financing associated with 26 projects and programs of which 80% or 1.1 billion is represented by investment mobilized. In this work program, the total expected co-financing ratio stands at 1 to 8.2, with investment mobilized for mix and new mix that are not LDCs and SIDS. Apologies for all the all the acronyms, they stand at 1 to 5.8. In GEF 7 to date, the co-financing stands at 1 to 7.9 and investment mobilized at 1 to 6.4. And these two figures exceed the overall co-financing aspiration that was set for the GEF 7 cycle. 8 of the 18 agencies are represented in this work program. UNDP has the largest share of resources with 39.7, followed by UNEP and the World Bank with 16.8% each. The remainder 27% was split among the remaining 5 agencies that are included in this work program. In GEF 7 to date, 16 of the 18 agencies have received resources on behalf of countries. UNDP, the World Bank, FAO, and UNEP have received the highest proportion of GEF resources, varying from 15% to slightly over 30% for UNDP. Chemicals and waste and international waters are the focal areas with the highest proportion of resources included in this work program, with 41% and 23% respectively. You might recall that these two focal areas were lagging a little bit behind when we had the last work program, but have caught up momentum against the GEF 7 targets. These focal areas are followed in the work program by biodiversity and land degradation with 15 and 12% respectively. In all, 43 recipient countries will benefit from this work program, including 10 LDCs and 16 small island developing states. Asia leads programming in this work program with 81.3 million. Africa and SIDS follow with 24.6 and 26.5 million respectively. Finally, ECA and LAC will receive 11.7 and 13.4 million respectively. The remaining resources programmed are all for global projects and for the NGI. The NGI program is submitting one project to the Council, which is a highly innovative concept that seeks to mobilize private sector resources through the issuance of 2 green bonds for sustainable land use and conservation in the capital markets of Peru and Ecuador. The financing is part of a broader and coordinated effort between several stakeholders, including local governments, several GEF agencies, financial intermediaries, and other private sector actors to address both the financing and the technical capacity barriers that prevent smallholder farmers from adopting sustainable agriculture practices in priority territories in the dry forests of Peru and Ecuador, which are global priorities for biodiversity as well. This brings the total NGI resources program in GEF 7 to over 95%. The proposed work program will deliver an impactful set of results across all 10 indicators, and it's projected to benefit a significant number of people in the countries where the GEF resources will be invested. Overall, the work program will deliver significant results on indicators linked to marine protected areas and the reduction of chemicals of global concern. Overall, 5 of the 10 indicators have now reached 100% or more of their GEF 7 targets, with 87% of resources being programmed. With this work program, 2 other indicators, first, the greenhouse gas emission reductions, and secondly, the reduction of chemicals of global concern are close to 90% or more. We still have another work program in GEF 7, and we plan to address the indicator that remains that is still lagging to some extent. I would like to close the presentation highlighting the recent development that should support our focus on reducing the impact of COVID-19 and also to work in helping to promote a healthy green and blue recovery. As we all know, the world is still struggling with the pandemic and its many waves and variants. But last week, an expert panel coordinated by the World Health Organization, FAO, the World Organization of Animal Health, and UNEP, they released a report that redefines what a One Health approach should look like. This framework is well in line with what has been proposed for the GEF 8 strategy under the program's directions with the Healthy Planet, Healthy People approach, and recognizes that we are dealing with systemic issues that require systemic solutions, looking to optimize the health of people, animals, and ecosystems, while at the same time mobilizing multiple sectors and disciplines. We're very happy that the revised One Health framework that I'm presenting here is consistent with the conclusions of the white paper produced by the GEF COVID-19 Response Task Force, which is now being published in a peer-reviewed publication and offers a powerful way to mobilize the GEF for the next replenishment cycle to contribute as much as it can for the recovery from COVID and for the prevention of new diseases. With this, Chair, I thank you for your attention and turn over to the floor to you.
Thanks, Gustavo, for presenting the 7th GEF 7th work program. And with this, I'd like now to open the floor for questions and comments from the council. I will ask our secretary to help us with the list of speakers. As usual, please use the chat box as a way to request the floor.
Thank you very much. I see Maria from the CSO network requesting the floor.
Buen día. Gracias, Gustavo, por la presentación del programa de trabajo. A mí me interesa comentarles que dentro del programa está, que todos lo tienen, el proyecto con identificación 10.872, que es un proyecto que está para aprobación, donde Uruguay forma parte, igual que otros 6 países, sumándose a esta práctica. Yo le pondría a este proyecto el nombre de ahora que estamos todos en esto, el detox. Este proyecto está además asentado en proyectos anteriores del GEF, que fue justamente el proyecto del uso racional de plaguicidas. Lo que quiero destacar para ver en este proceso cómo se une todo lo que venimos trabajando es que esto se ajusta a lo que tienen las divisiones 3 ministerios: el Ministerio de Ganadería, Agricultura y Pesca, el Ministerio del Ambiente, el Ministerio de Salud Pública. Porque este proyecto, al trabajar sobre el detox, los plaguicidas, siendo los países que lo van a implementar productores, y están integrados aquí visiones que hasta ahora no han trabajado juntos de esta misma manera, sino es a través de la Convención de Estocolmo que ha dado esta posibilidad, la mirada juntos de abordar algo que llega a la gente en la forma más cruel, porque en los casos más extremos, esto está vinculado a la salud humana y a la salud del planeta. Aquí lo que queda por decir, porque la verdad que es una forma muy buena de trabajar asociado con las organizaciones de la sociedad civil globalmente, es que esta es una forma y un mecanismo para adicionar, para sumar, para subir, para escalar. Esta es una forma integral de trabajo y está tomado desde las prácticas que necesitamos que sean vistas desde el GEF, porque esto es la sociedad unida, todos, desde la academia, desde la creación de las guías de plaguicidas, el sentarse alrededor de las mesas de oleaginosas. Esto nos va a dar una mirada, una forma de llegar desde todos los lugares y dar soluciones muy puntuales. Muchas gracias. Gracias, Gustavo, de nuevo.
Thank you. The floor is open for others who may wish to speak. Renato, you have the floor.
Thank you, William. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. On behalf of the Constituency of Brazil, Colombia, and Ecuador, we would like to commend the Secretariat for bringing together this work plan. While we see a positive focus on chemicals and waste and international waters, we witness feeble participation of the climate change focal areas on it, accounting for only 4.7% of this work plan. And the climate change is still lagging behind under the GEF 7 resources, with only 76.6% of resources, if I'm not mistaken. Coupled with that, there has been a historical decrease in resources for the focal area of climate change over the GEF replenishment. For example, in GEF 5, there was 1.36 billion, and GEF 6, there was a 1.26 billion, and now in GEF 7, only 882 million. So being a financial mechanism for UNFCCC, we understand that GEF plays an important role in mobilizing new additional resources for climate change. And in this regard, we'd like to see an increase in the resources being destined to these important focal areas under the GEF 8. And once again, my last note is we also note with concern, again, a decrease in the participation of Latin American Caribbean on this work program, from 9% on the previous work program to 7% under this work program. So we may have, would like to have a clarification from the Secretariat on this. Thank you very much. Over to you.
Thank you, Renato. Gabriela, you have the floor.
Thank you, William, and good morning, good afternoon, evening, colleagues. We welcome the work program and would like to thank the Secretariat, the operational focal points, and the implementing agencies for their hard work to put together the work program. And we welcome the large share of projects in the chemicals and waste focal area, in particular related to the enhanced POPs management. And we'd like to know whether the learnings from the evaluations of the programmatic approach included in OPS 7 have already been incorporated in the farm program, in particular with relation to the design and monitoring of the program in relation to the child projects. Further, we would like to express that we continue to be concerned about the large share of projects being implemented through very few implementing agencies and related concentration risks. And we know that we are discussing this also in the context of GEF 8. We have originally proposed to change the last paragraph of the decision that was speaking to the review of projects, but since now this concern of ours has been addressed in the context of the decision for the agenda item 4, we suggest we just either delete that paragraph or we make it in line with that other decision. But from what I understand, it's probably easier to just delete the last paragraph of the decision since it's now captured under decision 4. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gabriela. Rob, you have the floor.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Gustavo, for that really excellent presentation. I do hope we will have access to your slides. They're always so impressive. They show the information in such an interesting and concise manner. And I think it's really helpful for us when we're briefing our higher ups to have that information available. So thank you to the Secretariat, the implementing agencies, and the countries for this work program. We commend the GEF for reaching or almost reaching the full GEF 7 targets for 7 of the 10 core indicators. We, like Switzerland, note with appreciation and welcome the significant increase in outputs for the chemicals and waste focal area and look forward to the achievement of the remaining GEF 7 targets in the final work program. We also are pleased to see the commitment to engaging with indigenous stakeholders, especially in light of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. We stress the importance of these consultations and encourage workarounds when in-person meetings are not feasible or safe. Now, on a more critical note, we aren't comfortable oppose the use of non-voluntary land degradation neutrality targets, because land degradation neutrality is only one approach of many to combat the impacts of drought and desertification. And as a general rule, we push back against approaches that make the LDN targets mandatory. While we're not asking for a second review, we would be happy to work with the project coordinators for projects 10876 in India, 10863 in Cabo Verde, and 10858 in Micronesia to help ensure their project designs acknowledge that LDN is not promoted to the exclusion of other approaches or being codified with mandatory targets. Finally, we reiterate our request from past council meetings that the Secretariat send all UNDP projects for a second council review and an approval prior to CEO endorsement, while many of the policies in the independent third-party review are operationalized. We would like to request a second review of the Sustainable Mercury Management Project in China. It's 10864. We would like to better understand the target industries and pilot locations. We also request a second review of the Thermal Efficiency Project in India, 10878, as we would like to better address the risk of stranded assets from this project. In addition, the United States requests that the following statements be reflected in the written record of the council meeting. The United States, in light of policies for certain development projects in countries whose governments, 1, are not addressing trafficking in persons, 2, have engaged in a pattern of gross violations of internationally recognized human rights, or 3, do not have in place a functioning system for reporting to civilian authorities audits of receipts and expenditures that fund activities of armed forces and security forces, opposes the following projects, and therefore does not join a council decision that would support GEF projects 10865 in Comoros and 10864 in China. We express our appreciation again for the work program and will submit further detailed comments on the work program by email in advance of January 7th. Again, thanks so much. And this looks like a great work program, and congratulations. Over, I'll stop there. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Rob. Annette, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. And also joining my voice to others, congratulations to the GEF Secretariat, the countries and the agencies for putting together such a strong work program, and particularly the focus on the international waters and the chemicals and waste focal areas is much appreciated by us. Germany also welcomes and is very enthusiastic about the non-grant instrument project for blended finance that seeks to issue 2 green bonds for sustainable land use and conservation. We would be very grateful if you could share lessons in either the upcoming council or the following council on this project proposal. And also would like to know whether you have plans for upscaling. We are concerned that, like others before me, that some of the core results indicators haven't been sort of progressing well. And we'd like to know what are the main reasons for that and how you're going to address that. Gustavo, you said you're focusing on that for the next work program. So I'd really like to know more about that. Thanks very much. Germany also commends the Secretariat and the agencies and the countries on the focus on gender. We've seen now more detailed information on the projects, considering the gender dimensions. And as you know, I've requested a gender item for any other business for considering further measures for gender. On co-financing, thanks very much for all the information. Would it be possible to break down information even more across regions, focal areas, and in particular the aspect of private sector financing? That would be really interesting for us as well. And finally, a point about the project 10878, the improving thermal energy efficiency in the design, manufacture, and operation of industrial boilers for low carbon, micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises in India. We are very well aware that the project was designed prior to the decisions taken at the last COP26 regarding co-financing, such as the statement on international public support for the clean energy transition and the global coal to clean power transition statement. Yet we are convinced that the project can be adapted in a way to pay tribute to this new political context. We see that India has already made big strides in this direction. I, as the chair of the Lead IT Leadership Group for Energy Transition, and we congratulate India on that. Germany also supports India in its endeavors to its climate neutrality, so it's a substantive bilateral portfolio of more than 6 billion euros for energy transition and energy efficiency in various industry sectors. India's national goals on renewable energy are applaudable and show Indian leadership and living up to its political commitments. Yet we would strongly welcome if the project proposal displayed a clear decarbonizing pathway in line with the Paris Agreement and included a plausible assessment regarding the technological project orientation and its transition to clean energy alternatives. Given the fact that the retrofitted fossil fuel-based boilers have a new lifetime of around 15 years, that meaning up to 2037 or longer, the project should further elaborate on how the risk of a carbon lock-in and the boilers becoming stranded assets is being mitigated. And I noted the concern my US colleague voiced in this. Finally, as usual, we'll provide further comments on the work program in writing. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Ned. Gisela next, and then I'll offer the floor to Gustavo for responses.
Thank you, William. I would like to thank management and Gustavo in particular for the presentation of this work program that we generally support. We are particularly satisfied with the contribution given by the work program to the blue and green recovery in a period where many countries are suffering from the severe impact of the pandemic. This is a very important achievement. In particular, we praise the GEF for financing projects that contribute to food and nutrition security, as well as nature-based solutions, all elements of critical importance for Italy in this specific period of time, and vigorously highlighted by executive secretaries of the convention yesterday in our meeting. I have the following comments and questions. On the status of GEF 7 resources, we welcome the excellent progress in the programming front, with 87% of total resources of GEF 7 being committed. In this regard, we note that the status of the GEF 7 resources is ahead of the timeline for all the focal areas except for climate change. Can you please expand on the reason why climate change is a little bit behind with 76.6% compared to the other focal areas? And this is also reflected in the significantly low percentage of the total GEF resources requested for climate change in this work program. I mean, just 4.7%. Are there any specific challenges that we need to be addressed and any lessons learned to be included in the future? On the regional distribution, we note that the information given are only on the work program presented today. And in this regard, the big share of resources goes to the Asia region. We would like to understand better how the regional distribution has been for all G7 period. And could you please elaborate further on this point? In this regard, we would like to request a major attention to be devoted to Africa region and LDCs and SIDs. On the amount of resources by agency, like many others, and many comments that were raised during this council, we like to underline the importance not to concentrate the resources in few agencies. And I'm confident that the GEF is working on this issue. Having said this, I would request management to enhance its efforts in a more balanced work program in terms of distribution by regions and GEF agencies. On results and impact. First of all, let me stress the importance of measuring the results and the impact of the work program and projects financed. This is a critical work useful to understand where resources need to be allocated and if they provide the desired results. This would help to include the lessons learned in the future. And let me say that I would have expected a more accurate and detailed section on the document. In this regard, we note that in figure 4, 3 indicators, namely indicator 1, terrestrial protected areas, areas of landscape under improved practices, mean indicator 4, and the last indicator 8, marine fisheries, are well below the result desired. We welcome the intention of GEF Secretariat to put extra focus on the delivery against these indicators in the final work program in June 2022. Can you please expand on the reason why these 3 indicators are lagging behind? How the lessons learned were incorporated in the projects and programs according to the core indicators listed in figure 4? And finally, on the same figure, there is a reference number in the title, the number 7, but the footnote is missing, just a very minor thing. And before concluding, I would like to associate myself to the request made by Annette, by Germany, about having a breakdown of co-financing would be really very useful. With this comment, we wish you all the best for the implementation of the work program. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gisela. So, Gustavo, would you like to take the floor?
Sure. Thank you very much for the very good comments and suggestions and recommendations and questions. Let me try to organize the responses here. So there were some common themes. The question starting from the CSO network from Maria on the farm program, I'd like to stress and thank you for your very, very pertinent comments. And just like to say that the program does have a dedicated knowledge management component, and programs do advance KM much more than, let's say, a regular project in a lot of ways. And this component will collect and distill the lessons of the past work that we've done, and you highlighted this on hazardous chemicals management in agriculture, along with the best practices that can be applied to the countries, the 7 countries participating in the program. And successful work in this area includes, engagement with CSOs and NGOs, including IPAN. So Crop Life International, also, which is a global NGO in agriculture, is a partner in the program. Thanks for the comments that highlighted the focal area of climate change mitigation and some of the numbers associated with it, and whether it's lacking in terms of programming. I think it's important to understand that the climate change focal area has at this point not only utilized the smallest net transfer also in terms of flexibility, but also contribute to the largest amounts of flexibility, notwithstanding the decreased allocation that you've noted in GEF 7. However, as of this November, the climate change core indicator on greenhouse gas emissions mitigated, as I presented today in the work program presentation, is well on its way to achieving its GEF 7 target. We are 96.4% within that target, even though the climate change mitigation focal area comprises only 18% of the GEF 7 notional resources program, and 80% of the GEF 7 financing is climate related, which I should also note, as we have reported in the scorecard by use of the Rio markers. This is a clear demonstration of the multiple benefits framework that we utilize on climate change that was initialized in GEF 7 programming, and that forms an integral component of the GEF 8 strategy, which by definition of its integrated programming lessens the assumption of a strong correlation between sources of funds and focal area results. So we are well on course to meet the 100% target. One additional point in regards to climate change indicators, we are still expecting quite a lot of programming on enabling activities, and we were expecting some more action on that, but we're going to be working very closely with the countries in the next work program on the questions of on the question of enabling activities that we still need to address in this GEF 7 cycle. The question from Gabriela on the use of the IEO recommendations for M&E and the programs for the farm chemicals programmatic approach. Yes, the program fully incorporates the recommendations, and the M&E has been designed specifically to capture both the results at the child project level, as well as at the programmatic level as well. And during the PPG, the program level indicators will be developed, and this is over and above what's normally required. Let me see what else. On the comment about LDN, Rob, we really agree with you. It's very clear that the LDN targets are voluntary, and UNCCD understands this, and the GEF, and in projects that we apply this, this is the premise. And this is why the 3 LD projects that were mentioned use a wide range of approaches in the context of sustainable land management. And we do agree, and if there is any indication in any of these projects that somehow LDN targets would be mandatory, please let us know, and we can address that. On the question from Germany on the NGI project, indeed, we are planning to have a strong component of knowledge that can provide lessons learned during implementation. I'm not so sure if we can provide before the additional information before the project starts execution, but we can provide some updates as needed. On the question that you also mentioned, Annette, on scaling up, we're going to be discussing this with the agency for this region, because we believe that there's a lot of room for green bonds that focus on land degradation. This is becoming quite a trend, and the great majority of green bonds issued in Latin America is focused so far on renewable energy and energy efficiency. So this is a frontier area, but I'm certain that there's great potential for scaling up. On the question by Annette again on the breakdown, or I think Italy also brought this up, breakdown of co-financing. In terms of the private sector, I would point you to the private sector engagement strategy, in which we provide a full breakdown of private sector co-financing by industry type, according to the GICS industry sector, and a typology in the information note on the private sector engagement. But I believe your request goes beyond that for more fine-grained information in regards to co-financing by region. We'll see what's possible, and perhaps in the next work program we can provide you with that information, and perhaps even in the scorecard. On the question of targets and the lower delivery on on core indicator 1 and core indicator 14, protected areas and landscapes. It's very difficult to set targets. We actually quite impressed by how close we are to reaching all of these 10 core indicator targets for GEF 7, because as you know, the GEF follows up country ownership and a priority-driven approach that comes from countries. And there are many ways that countries can indeed utilize their resources, adhering to the concept of a country ownership. And so it's kind of hard to project forward. So targets are normally set based on some analysis of a past trend of country priorities, plus some projection of what we think certain countries are looking at, for example, NDCs and NBSAPs might be bringing to the table. But in GEF 7, I must say that countries have decided to use a higher proportion of their allocation than was the case previously for restoration and marine work. That's why we have targets that have been overshot on core indicators 2, 3, and 5, for example, when other terrestrial targets are still lagging a bit on core indicator 1 and 4. We do have, and to your question, a few projects that we are in the pipeline discussing with countries and agencies that we hope to include in the June 2022 work program that can bring these indicators much more close to their targets. So we work hard on this. On the core indicator 18 on fisheries, core indicator 8 on fisheries, I must say that bringing overexploited fisheries to sustainable levels it's a complex process. It's a long-term process, and changing actions, they have to touch on a bunch of economic sectors. We have to look at pre-catch, catch, post-catch supply chains, etc. And these investments, they tend to take longer to mature. But we do have a few more investments in this sector that, according to our early discussions with again agencies, we hope to include in the June 22 work program, which can bring this indicator closer to its target. At present, it is at 70%. Let me see here. The question about distribution of resources in the work program. Again, I caution against trying to see any trend on any one work program, because these batches of projects are not representative of the overall distribution of resources across regions. For example, Africa and LDCs and SIDS have been well programmed to date, but this time Asia, that was a little lagging behind in terms of use of their allocations, have come in, as well as more resources from the international waters and chemicals that you've recognized, and I think we're pleased to see coming in. So I caution against trying to look at trends just looking at one work program. In fact, most regions are already very close to fulfilling their programming. On Latin America and Caribbean, that was mentioned by Brazil, the programming level is 88% of all the STAR resources have been already utilized by the countries because they were fast programmers. In a sense, that's what we see in past work programs. They had a much higher representation, and of course, you can't have the same level throughout the entire 4-year cycle. But most countries are well within what we should expect at this stage in GEF 7, and we'll see this in the last work program much more clearly. Thanks also for the specific comments on individual projects, including the one in India. And as always, we'll collect all these comments and work with the agencies to ensure that they are taken into account during the preparation phase. Let me see what else. I think, William, I've addressed the questions that were posed up to this point. If I missed anyone, we can reconvene later on to do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So let's take the next set of speakers. And Brenda, you have the floor.
Thank you, William. Voy a hablar en español. Muy buen día, tarde y o noche a todos. Desde nuestra circunscripción, constituida por Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, México, Nicaragua, Panamá y Venezuela, agradecemos el reporte del programa de trabajo presentado e invitamos al GEF a aumentar o al menos mantener los recursos para la siguiente reposición. Ya que el contexto actual ha aumentado las necesidades de los países en desarrollo. Agradecemos la integración del al programa de trabajo del proyecto promoviendo la sustentabilidad en la cadena de valor agave mezcal a través de la restauración y manejo integral de los paisajes bioculturales en Oaxaca. De aprobarse este proyecto, nuestro uso de recursos STAR aumentará al 97%, misma que esperamos aumentar al 100% a finales de la séptima reposición. Nos sumamos a la preocupación de Brasil y de que para esta reposición América Latina presentó bajos niveles de recursos programados. Por ello, insistimos en la importancia de apoyar a los países más afectados por las condiciones sanitarias, recordando que los países de ingresos medios son los que más van a aumentar su población por debajo del umbral de la pobreza. De igual forma, adicionalmente, sugerimos bajar las condiciones de cofinanciamiento y los requerimientos burocráticos que muchas veces representan una barrera en el desarrollo de proyectos. En aras de mejorar el aprovechamiento de los recursos, también invitamos al GEF a impulsar una ventanilla para preparar propuestas de proyectos. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, Brenda. Ben, you have the floor.
Many thanks, William, and also good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone. Many thanks for the work programme and particularly for the Secretariat countries and agencies for enabling this to happen. And many thanks also to Gustavo for the introduction. We will send some further comments on the projects in writing after the meeting. So just a couple of brief comments now. As others have said, it's good to see the increases in the international waters and chemical and waste focal areas. And many thanks also to Gustavo for the answers you provided so far on results. And maybe just a couple of other points on that. It'd be useful to get your sense about what's the level of confidence that the targets will be achieved for this GEF-7 period in those areas where it's currently lacking. We also noted the point about the lower levels on, slightly lower level on climate change, comparison to the 87.5% of the progress through GEF-7 at the moment, but I think Gustavo, you've answered that, so many thanks on that one. Just finally though, in terms of the chemical and waste area, I think we noted that about 51% of the results were being delivered through this work programme, with just 13% of the resources in just 3 projects. So significant results for 3 projects. So I'm not sure if you can maybe expand on that and how I should interpret that particular area. And then finally, as others have said, US and Germany would also be keen to see project 10878 from India as well for a second council review before CO endorsement. Many thanks.
Thank you very much. Victoria has the floor.
Thank you, William. We would like to congratulate the GEF for the ambitious work program. We've already submitted some questions in writing, and I'd like to thank the GEF Secretariat for the quick replies that we've received. Just a few remarks here. Overall, we also find it positive that the work program gives support to areas that were still lagging behind, in particular international waters and chemicals and waste. This is a great achievement and a good trend. In the future, we feel it would be useful to also have more work in other areas that are still lagging behind. And we see that especially in the area of land degradation. Second point I'd like to make is that we note with concern that one agency makes up 39.7% of this work program. We do understand that there is, that there can be certain fluctuations across work programs, but we think we should not reverse the trend to more balance of funding across agencies. And in particular, we'd also like to encourage the GEF Secretariat to engage with the regional MDBs and to get them involved more. And one final point, I would like to echo the comments made by Germany and also others on the India project on improving thermal energy efficiency. We would also like to see a clear decarbonization pathway and transition to energy alternatives, and would also welcome a second review. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Victoria. Yoshiko, you have the floor.
Thank you, William, for giving me the floor. We'd like to thank the Secretariat for preparing this document and generally support it. We'll be submitting comments on a few projects in writing, but we have just a few broad questions on this document. First, like what others have mentioned, we'd like to understand a little bit whether there was any unique reason in particular to this work program that led to, again, a very high allocation of resources program for UNDP by a pretty big margin again. We're just wondering because we're still unsure whether UNDP will be able to execute and manage these additional projects as the resources are going to be consumed in responding to audit requirements. Second, we have questions on the table, figure 4 on page 12 of the document, delivery of global environmental benefits against GEF 7 targets for core indicators. This is a very important summary table, but lacks detailed discussions or explanations in the report, and we wonder why core indicator 1 and 3 on terrestrial protected areas and landscapes under improved practices have such low expected results, especially as this is an area that addresses mandates of several of the conventions and are indicators that are relevant to past and existing large programs that have been in place at the GEF for a while. So we also wonder why few programs have been proposed here to address this issue and whether there is something structurally deficient that needs to be addressed. On the third, on the NGI project, like others, we welcome this proposal based on the issuance of these green bonds in the local capital markets. We think that this is a very exciting development. And just like Germany, we hope that lessons learned at every stage of such programming can be leveraged more broadly. And thank you, Gustavo, for giving us some explanation to this. We'd be happy to see the scale up if appropriate. And this appears to involve various stakeholders for financing. We're curious to hear how you would be monitoring the implementation of the credit enhancements described across so many smaller borrowers and monitoring those results and how credit risk is managed and communicated to buyers of these securities. We'll be submitting other comments and questions in writing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yoshiko. Liesl, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Our constituency would like to thank the GEF Secretariat for the overview provided in the work program document and for the project documents, including the statistical information regarding projects in the pipeline and the COVID-19 screens. We as well will be submitting comments at project level in writing. We would like to back up a couple of points raised by a number of our colleagues already, as noted by Brazil, Germany, and Italy, and many others. In fact, we have noted the target allocation for climate changes behind the programming timeline. We appreciate Gustavo's response so far, but we hope indeed that it's possible to ensure full programming for the climate change focal area, given there's only one work program left in GEF 7. We also support Germany and Italy's request for a breakdown on co-financing. We would like to propose an idea of some more granular information being included in the scorecard, perhaps. Already mentioned by many others and also addressed by Gustavo on the core indicator targets, as raised by Ben. We would also like to hear if you actually at this point are expecting that some of the indicator targets will not be reached within GEF 7, and if so, do you already have an idea which ones? We have noticed that there are still 2 accredited organizations that haven't had any funding during GEF 7, and we'd be interested to know if there is any reasons behind this. In terms of COVID-19 opportunity analysis, are you planning on following up on these opportunities during the implementation of the projects and also gathering lessons learned? Since 92% of projects in this work program plan to address gender gap,
We've lost you.
Can you hear me?
You're back now. Yes, for a moment there we lost you.
Okay, sorry. Did you hear my point on the gender?
No, go a bit further back.
Go. COVID-19 opportunity analysis?
I think we got that one.
No? Okay, all right. So since 92% of projects in this work program plan to address gender gaps, we look forward to seeing reporting on this in the project MTRs and final reports and in the annual monitoring report. We also expect that this will lead to learning across the GEF partnership. Our constituency notes again that a few non-OECD DAC eligible countries will be receiving support under this work program. Even though it is acceptable under DAC rules for the GEF to fund up to 10% of projects in non-ODA eligible countries, we would like to make a point that most funding to the GEF is ODA funding and should be used in ODA eligible countries. We appreciate the risk assessments in the PIFs, but note that for some projects, staff recommends a more detailed risk assessment. We would like to make sure that when the project document is developed, that these risks are assessed once more and that social and ecological aspects are sufficiently taken into consideration in project design. And finally, we appreciate that projects under the chemicals and waste focal area generally are within the main priorities as set out by the Conference of Parties to the Stockholm and Minamata Conventions, respectively. But we miss a greater emphasis on the phasing out of PCBs, where many parties to the Stockholm Convention face considerable challenges with the final deadlines in 2025 and 2028. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Liesl. Feturi, you have the floor.
Thank you, William. Thank you, Gustavo, for the presentation and for the subsequent clarification to some of the points that were raised. Let me, by way of introduction, confirm for the record that Ms. Annalisa Ter, the council member for our Asia Pacific constituency, has requested that as alternate member, I represent our constituency at today and tomorrow's sessions of the council, as she has a long-standing commitment that she has to attend to. So it is for that reason why I am taking the floor. With regards to the agenda item under consideration, our constituency supports the approval of the December 2021 work program, as it includes 7 out of 25 technically cleared project proposals, or 28%, from the following constituency member countries: Indonesia, Marshall Islands, Micronesia, Philippines, Timor-Leste, and Tonga. We appreciate the level of GEF partnerships between and among the GEF Secretariat and implementing agencies in designing and reviewing the proposals despite the pandemic. It is worthy to note that all these technically cleared proposals were subjected to COVID-19 screening as to risk and opportunity analysis. This has resulted in a strong and quality portfolio of projects that can continue to a resilient blue and green recovery. While we understand that all the projects under this work program are subject to further review of the council, we still enjoy the council's approval of 190.7 million project financing, inclusive of agency fees. The proposed work program will deliver an impactful set of results across all 10 core indicators and is projected to benefit a significant number of people in the countries where the GEF resources will be invested, particularly GEF 7 indicators 8 and 9 that are linked to marine protected areas and the reduction of chemicals of global concern, reaching 90% with the approval of the said 25 projects and 1 program. I thank you.
Thank you very much. With that, I hand the floor back to Gustavo for answers or comments.
Thank you, William. Just trying to get my buttons here correct. Okay. There were some questions that were addressed in the last round in terms of recommendations for the breakdown of co-financing. Again, we'll take a hard look at what we can do on this. So thank you for the suggestion. let me see here. Question from Ben on the results that have been achieved on chemicals waste in the work program and the relationship between the amount of resources against the significant expected results. And I'd like to clarify that the agriculture sector was one of the two main sectors that we had prioritized for action in GEF 7. And up to this point, there have been limited work in agriculture under the chemicals and waste focal area. And this program is the largest, single largest investment in the agriculture sector under chemicals and waste. And this program is specifically designed to eliminate the use of POPs and HHPs in some of the largest crops in which they use, which accounts for the expected high GB potential. So that's the reason that this project is so impactful. On the question about and the comments about the proportion that's going to UNDP again, I caution against looking at one work program as opposed to the trend along the entire cycle, which is the one that I think we should monitor. And as I mentioned in the presentation, we are at 31.5% of UNDP projects overall, which is a reduction from the last time, but we hear you clearly, and we are endeavoring, and this question was already discussed in prior sessions. So we are well aware of your sentiments and your guidance on this. Thank you. On this particular work program, I would just say that it could be a reflection, the high proportion for UNDP of the inclusion of small island developing states and least developed countries in the work program. That's 26 projects out of 42, or 60% of all countries. And we know that UNDP is often the sole agency available for many of these countries. And so we are, our power to steer this in the way that you'd like to see these trends going is sometimes limited. On Denmark, question about the risks to projects, the project review that we conduct before the CEO endorsement includes a very detailed set of standards around different risks that are associated with the project implementation. These are reviewed and we provide due diligence in all the comments that we receive during the preparation phase. The question from Japan, Yoshiko-san, thank you, on NGI and more specifically on monitoring the results of the guarantees that we have provided. So the issues of the bonds are expected to be, as the project mentions, the Ban Ecuador, which has a local rating of A, and COFIDE has a local rating of AA. The guarantees will have these issuers reach longer maturities and lower interest rates. And the own lending to smallholder farmers is part of the Ban Ecuador and COFIDE business as usual, since both institutions are local development institutions. So we'll try to document the enhancement that's achieved through the GEF and the CAF guarantees that are anticipated in this project, since these will be analyzed and assessed by credit rating agencies before the bonds are actually issued. Denmark on the ODA funding, yes, this is clear and we know that, but we recognize there are several GEF recipient countries that have graduated from the ODA status. For example, Bahamas, Seychelles, Uruguay, etc., or will soon be graduating. However, STAR allocations are usually guided by STAR eligibility conditions that's provided by the conventions and the instrument. And these are irrespective of ODA status. In addition, given the level of support provided to non-ODA eligible countries, contributions of the GEF Trust Fund are expected to remain ODA eligible through the GEF 7 cycle as well as the 8th cycle, as more than 90% of financing will be provided to ODA eligible countries. Again, on the targets, we'll keep a close tab on that. On confidence levels, it's hard to say because again, these projects have not come to us just yet. We have pipeline discussions going on. I must say that the last work program, we have some more flexibility to steer some of the resource programming towards areas that are still lagging behind. So we might be able to identify projects and programs that may bring us much closer to the targets that were set. But again, I please understand that we don't have any hard codified measures that we can use to ensure at the end of the day that every single target will be fully realized. Note also that some of these targets have been exceeded because some countries have prioritized the use of resources on certain areas. And we see this trend fluctuating from cycle to cycle. In the CBD convention space, for example, 3 cycles ago, there was a lot of emphasis on protection and looking at the terrestrial landscape. Then it migrated towards looking more on mainstreaming biodiversity. And now there's a big a concentration of attention on the oceans. So these trends, at the end of the day, they tend to influence resource programming by countries. Okay, the rest of the comments, there are directives to us. We note and we'll address them, such as the call from Germany on the reporting on MTRs and MERs and AMRs on the gender aspect of it, COVID-19 opportunity analysis, and what else? I guess I've addressed them. Thank you.
William, do you allow me to complement to a couple of things that would sound okay? Thank
Please
you.
go ahead.
Thanks, William, and thanks, Gustavo. It was mentioned by a couple of council members about the low number of climate-related projects in this work program. So it is important to note that the climate change focal area, even though it has a modest net transfer, also contributes to the largest amount in terms of flexibility, notwithstanding its decreased allocation in GEF 7. However, based on the information that we have of November 2021, the climate change core indicator, which is green gas hazards emission mitigated, was well on its way to achieve its GEF 7 target. It is around 96% so far. So although climate change mitigation comprise only around 18 to 20% of the GEF program resources, 80% of the GEF financing, including all programs, is climate related, as indicated by the real markers. I want to highlight this because this is a good demonstration of the multiple benefits framework that was initiated in GEF 7 programming that forms an integrated component now in our GEF 8 programming strategy, which by definition of its integrated programming works on the assumption of a very strong correlationship within sources of funds and focal area results. And then also, William, it was mentioned the relatively low number of projects coming from Latin America and Caribbean, and that is basically because these countries has already utilized all of their star resources. They've been extremely effective so far during the GEF 7 cycle. Thank you, William.
Thank you very much. So let's move on to the next colleagues on the list of speakers. Rene, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you so much. Our seat, of course, approves of the work program. Estonia, Finland, the Netherlands note with appreciation that with this work plan, the backlog incurred in the chemicals and waste focal area has been addressed. And we're also happy to hear that each proposal now includes a COVID risk assessment with many adaptive practices and it's also now mainstreamed in project preparation. And in that context, we also appreciate the gender reporting, as was asked by Denmark. We also very much appreciate that special attention is given to projects that can contribute to a resilient blue and green recovery. Moreover, glad to learn that of the 43 recipient countries that will benefit from this work program, 26 are LDCs and or SIDS. On another note, when we look at the percentages of original focal area target allocation in GEF 7, we see that in all focal areas we're reaching 90% of the targets when including the current potential work program, and we would have made the same comments on the climate issue, but we're happy to learn that it has its full attention. So we expect that all focal areas, including climate, will reach a target percentage in the high 90s at the end of GEF 7. There's another observation that worries us. We see that the targets for terrestrial protected areas and for areas and landscapes under improved practices, they're now reaching just 50% of GEF 7 targets, while spending for those targets is around 90%. We're assuming most of these funds needed for these targets come from the allocations for biodiversity and land degradation. Is this an indication that the activities under these targets have been less successful, or that they deliver fewer protected square meters per invested dollars? So how will you address this seemingly or apparent gap in next year's last work program for GEF 7? And finally, Mr. Chair, we also see that 40% of the resources of this work program go to UNDP, which reinforces the impression that concentration remains a serious issue. And we also very much welcome the way you seem to address this issue. So thank you very much.
Thank you, René. Stephanie, you have the floor.
Bonjour à tous, je vais m'exprimer en français. Nous remercions le secrétariat, les agences et les points focaux dans les pays pour la préparation de ce work programme. Nous soutenons le work programme, en particulier grâce à l'accent qu'il a mis sur les déchets et les produits dangereux, notamment les POPs, les déchets électroniques et électriques, comme ça a été indiqué par d'autres collègues auparavant. Et en particulier le programme FARM, dont vient de parler Gustavo, pour éliminer ou fortement réduire l'usage des produits phytosanitaires à POPs, en soulignant l'importance d'ailleurs d'aller au maximum vers des pratiques agricoles sans produits phytosanitaires. Nous souhaitons tout de même attirer l'attention sur 2 projets et nous souhaiterions une deuxième revue par le Conseil sur ces 2 projets. Le premier est évoqué par d'autres collègues, il s'agit du projet UNIDO en Inde. Nous souhaitons que le secrétariat veille avec l'agence à s'assurer que le projet ne conduise pas à écarter des alternatives aux combustibles fossiles comme les énergies non renouvelables. Et deuxièmement, qu'il ne conduise pas à étendre la durée de vie de ces équipements sur le marché, conformément à la stratégie énergie dont on a discuté notamment à la COP de Glasgow. Le deuxième projet est celui de la CAF sur la forêt sèche au Pérou, où nous souhaiterions attirer l'attention du secrétariat et de l'agence que les objectifs de réduction de l'usage des produits phytosanitaires doivent être de l'usage des produits phytosanitaires et des intrants chimiques doivent être bien suffisamment ambitieux et que les pratiques promues dans le cadre de ce projet soient aussi proches que possible des pratiques sans usage de ces produits. Et nous souhaitons qu'il y ait un suivi évaluation important de ces objectifs à partir d'une baseline de référence dès le début du projet. Nous souhaitons également revenir sur le sujet de la part que représente le PNUD à nouveau dans ce work programme et en tendance, puisque nous refaisons à chaque work programme le même commentaire. Nous soutenons, comme d'autres collègues, une diversification des agences et notamment une plus grande part des banques multilatérales de développement. Par ailleurs, nous soutenons la remarque de la Suisse pour s'assurer de la cohérence des décisions des décisions du Conseil entre celles générales sur le PNUD et celles de ce work programme. Enfin, ça a été déjà mentionné, mais nous souhaitons également partager l'observation précédemment faite sur le retrait, le recul un peu des indicateurs 1, 4 et 8, je ne détaillerai pas, et également sur la remarque faite par le Danemark sur le principe de la question des pays ODA eligible, des pays éligibles à l'ODA, puisque la contribution française, comme les autres contributions, sont éligibles à l'ODA. Merci.
Merci, Stephanie. Karen, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. Sweden welcomes the work program and the efforts made to make sure that the program is in line with the GEF 7 distribution of resources between the different focal areas. Only climate change is a bit behind schedule, and that has been addressed also by Gustavo in his response. But we're interested in knowing how it will be ensured that that will not be the case when the last program is decided, since already 95% of the resources are programmed for in GEF 7. We also, as some others have mentioned, noticed that 2 out of the 18 implementing agencies have no GEF resources, and also another 5 or 7 or so of the agencies have programmed for less than 1.5% of the GEF resources. And then we have others that have a much larger proportion of the resources. And we are looking forward, as has been said earlier, to the discussion on concentration in the GEF 8 replenishment meetings. It is important that more of the agencies receive resources and implement projects to ensure geographical and thematic balance and ownership of the receiving countries. Sweden finds that the gender dimensions should be fully integrated in the program cycle. In the work program, it is mentioned that most and many projects address gender aspects in different ways, but we need to move to a point where we can actually say that all projects do this. Sweden would also appreciate more information on the integration of gender aspects in the programming and the work to include protection against discrimination in the policy on gender equality, as was also requested by the parties to the UNFCCC through the COP26 decision. Finally, we also, on the UNIDO India project, as has been mentioned by others, we have some concerns over the climate effects of the proposed intervention. The GEF should focus on transformational change in response to climate change and promote renewable energy. And we would like the GEF Secretariat to follow up on whether there are no renewable alternatives to be used in the project instead, how to ensure that there is no risk of lock-in effect involved in this project design, and how a real and sufficient reduction of emissions is to be ensured. And we welcome, as has been asked also by others, a second review on this project. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karen. Richard, you have the floor.
Thank you, William. Like others, I'd like to thank the Secretariat and the GEF implementing agencies for presenting a very strong work program, and we can strongly endorse the, in an aggregate sense. We welcome the projects in the work program that contribute both to the blue and green economy. And we also, in particular, welcome the projects in the Indo-Pacific area with an additional 7 projects in the region. We note the effort continues to focus on previous underrepresented chemicals and waste spending and international waters focal areas, and that's very much appreciated. We would appreciate an update from the Secretariat. Perhaps this is not the point for that, but I'm not sure where else I could ask this question. But an update from the Secretary on the efforts to improve the transparency as outlined in the Quality of ODA report. by the Centre for Global Development. We discussed that in the last meeting. I was just wondering if there could be an update provided on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Richard. Tom, you have the floor.
Thank you, William. Thank you to the GEF Secretariat, the agencies and other partners for putting forward this work program under COVID conditions with COVID risk and mitigation fully considered. Canada welcomes the program's emphasis on chemical and waste, in addition to the substantial work on in the international waters and biodiversity. We support the link to the strategic approach to international chemical management under the FARM project. As a general point, I've heard all of the comments from council members. Since we are all working together towards net zero and nature positive as soon as possible, always good to create and share knowledge, have more granular information for each project on how the projects are Paris aligned, and additional information on the transition pathways as called for by Germany, US, and others for the India project, for example. The other point that has been raised by many, and I would support, is financial innovations like green bonds. And in the future, I assume you'll introduce blue bonds as important ways to engage with the private sector, mobilize more capital, especially private capital, in financing nature in the future. With that, we promise to provide more written comments ahead of the deadline in January. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hong Xia, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Amin. I'd like to welcome the program and also commend the efforts made by the Secretariat, the operating focal points, and the implementation agencies. Regarding China's project on sustainable mercury management, GEF 10864, we appreciate support from council members. The proposed project aims to reduce emissions of mercury through piloting best available technologies and best environmental practices, and will share the results to facilitate uptake throughout the sector. Regarding the project for St. Kitts and Nevis, GEF 10856, we find there is a mismatch between the limited number of 10 beneficiaries and the funding amount requested, and hope the project could be better designed. So in that context, I would like to oppose this project and do not join the council decision on this project. And I also request the co-chairs to record China's objection in the joint summary and require the second council review prior to CEO endorsement. Thank you.
Thank you. Gerard, you have the floor.
Thank you, William. So I would like to join the voice of others by saying that we do appreciate the quality of the work program. And also I would like to thank Gustavo for his presentation and also all the clarification given. So I'm not going to repeat the issues. Maybe I will go back to 2 issues. I would like to say that we are pleased with the practice of including COVID-19 screens for projects in the work program, in the document. We would like an assessment of how the various waves of pandemic are impacting on project design and implementation. So our question is, do we have a cost assessment of the delays caused by the pandemic? Could you give us some example of high-risk mitigation measures for the pandemic, where the pandemic has been put in place and are operational? Secondly, as indicated in the document, the proposed work program will deliver a set of results across 10 core indicators and is projected to also benefit a significant number of people where projects are implemented. We would like to understand better the challenges encountered in reaching targets set for 2 indicators, where results reach around something like 50%. These 2 indicators in questions are, firstly, terrestrial protected areas created or under improved management for conservation and sustainable use. And the second one is area of landscapes under improved practices. Thank you, William.
Thank you very much. Ritesh, you have the floor. Ritesh, are you there? Okay, well, let's, well, we see if Ritesh is available. Let's give the floor to Ramon. You have the floor.
Thank you. I'm going to intervene in Spanish. Nos alegramos de que... sorry, I'm listening the translation. No. Nos alegramos de que a raíz de este programa de trabajo, la mayoría de las áreas focales, excepto cambio climático, alcanzan un porcentaje muy alto de asignación en relación a la prevista para el periodo GEF 7. Destacamos el Small Grants Program, que alcanza un porcentaje altísimo, porque creemos que además que este programa es muy relevante para la involucración de los pequeños agentes locales. Vemos con preocupación igualmente lo comentado por Suiza, Austria y otros en Francia en materia de concentración. UNDP recibe el 40% de los recursos en el programa. En relación a la involucración del sector privado, apoyamos un poco lo comentado por Alemania, Italia, sobre el interés de conocer el desglose de la cofinanciación movilizada. También consideramos interesante lo indicado por Brenda sobre un programa específico o ventanilla para la formulación de proyectos. Y leyendo el programa de trabajo consideramos muy positiva esa inclusión del apartado de innovación en las propuestas para que los proyectos gestionen los riesgos generados por la pandemia y los conviertan en desafíos, estos desafíos en nuevas oportunidades. En relación a proyectos concretos, nos hemos fijado también en el proyecto, creo que Alemania, Austria, Suecia han hablado sobre ello, el proyecto en la India sobre la mejora de la eficiencia de la energía térmica en el diseño, fabricación y funcionamiento de las calderas industriales. Coincidimos que la eficiencia energética es un tema clave, que hay que apoyarlo, que el proyecto es interesante, pero que si queremos fomentar la descarbonización, el proyecto debería dar visos o incidir en algunas cuestiones un poco más allá, buscando soluciones a largo plazo para el sector industrial. Estamos hablando del fomento de renovables, redes de calor y frío, district heating, biocombustibles, hidrógeno, este tipo de cuestiones que vayan un poco más allá de lo que hay actualmente o lo que hemos leído del proyecto. En relación al proyecto de eficiencia energética en Marshall Island, también dentro de este área focal de cambio climático, consideramos muy interesante que a pesar de que el proyecto se enfoca a eficiencia energética en edificios, también incluye las soluciones basadas en la naturaleza como un enfoque integrador que abarca tanto mitigación como adaptación. Creemos que es un buen ejemplo y que es replicable, y creemos que este concepto de soluciones basadas en la naturaleza también podría incluirse en el otro proyecto de este área focal, el localizado en St. Kitts y Nevis, que promueve la eficiencia energética y soluciones en edificios públicos. Creemos que ahí también tiene sentido que se hable de Net Based Solution. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, Ramón. Ritesh, let's see if we can hear you. There you are.
Thank you, William. I had a technical glitch, so I am actually logged in from my phone now. The laptop still seems to have conked off. So I'll begin by thanking all the participants for their comments, and we welcome the work program in general, and we are very happy to note that the program is progressing very well, and we are on track to achieve 100% programming. In response to Germany and a lot of other colleagues' comments about the boiler project in India, I would like to just very briefly respond to that. The project falls under the climate change focal area of the GEF 7 programming objectives, and the objectives to promote innovation and technology transfer for sustainable energy breakthroughs, with its prime focus on entry point for accelerating energy efficiency adoption. The project addresses the key challenges of lacking knowledge and tools, inadequate technical and management capabilities, and non-existent harmonization of energy performance of industrial boilers and steam systems, leading to market failures and continued inefficiency in selection, installation, operation, and maintenance of small-scale industrial boilers. The project objective is to enhance the thermal efficiency of the boilers by introducing efficient heating to decarbonize the MSME sector. I would like to emphasize that the project will reduce carbon dioxide emissions by 2 million tons per year. And we also note that the GEF has sponsored similar projects in Southeast Asia earlier as well. And it is expected that the project intervention will lead to phasing down of coal in industrial heating. It must be noted that India is among the very few countries to be on track to achieve the 2-degree compliance goal. India has also declared a net zero target by 2070, and during the process, India will accelerate its efforts towards the phase down of unabated coal power as agreed at COP26. However, we should remember that the broad outline that the national circumstances have to be kept in mind that was agreed in COP26 is accepted by all our partners. That is the defining characteristic of GEF, and we hope that this will be maintained in this project as well. This having said, we are happy to discuss further with GEF Secretariat about this project and our other colleagues, and to see what is the best way forward for implementation of this project. Thank you. Thank you, William. And apologies again for the glitch.
No worries. Thank you, Ritesh. And that ends the list of speakers. So back to you, Gustavo.
Thank you very much, William, and thanks to the additional remarks and questions and statements, all very much appreciated. Thanks to the Netherlands for the points about resilient and green recovery. So this is a very important aspect of the project design these days, and this goes also to the question that Gerard asked about in terms of pandemic mitigation. We have for every project now a COVID screen that you can access and see how agencies are dealing with this and how countries are innovating in terms of introducing measures that continue with project planning, preparation, and implementation. And also there are some innovations that have been introduced. One of them, which I think would be useful, Gerard, for you to look into, is a medium-sized project that was approved about a year ago, looking at creating a platform for Africa to support the really, let's say, the valley in income that has been created by COVID on the wildlife dependent tourism sector in Africa, in which a donor platform was created and is looking at how to bring additional resources from multiple donors to support this transition phase towards greater diversification of economic alternatives for livelihoods that have been severely affected by the pandemic in the tourism sector. So there's quite a lot there, and we will provide you with more detail on that going forward. On the question, again, we hear you clearly on the question of concentration and also on target setting. We'll know more, and it's difficult to say with precision whether the two targets that are lagging will get to 100%, since as it was noted here, we are getting to the end of this cycle. And it'll be interesting to analyze in certain cases why the results are ended up being that way. One of the possible hypotheses that I can think of in terms of the protected areas and the terrestrial landscapes targets. Over time, I think you've noticed that how the cost, the opportunity cost of land around the world, even in the developing world, is increasing quite dramatically over the past few years. The opportunities for the creation of protected areas is also reducing over time because of a number of competing land uses. And so it requires more resources per unit area at the end of the day. So there are many factors that play into this, in addition to what I mentioned earlier in terms of how countries prioritize the use of their limited resources within a particular 4-year cycle. So whatever the case might be, when we finish GEF 7 and by the June 2022 work program, we'll be able to provide you with some more detailed answers on the question of targets, and conversely, how we were able to overshoot many of the targets that were initially considered to be less realistic to achieve, but we have actually, countries have really did a great work on bringing them forward. Let's see here, the question of, and this was a question that lingers from one of the earlier rounds and also was now reiterated by, I think, Sweden, on why we have 2 agencies that we haven't provided financing to. First of all, in one of the cases, it's the country's choice. It's a national agency, and the country decided not to use this particular agency in this cycle, and so that's the explanation for this result. In another, it's a regional entity that has submitted a couple of projects, but they haven't been. One has been dropped, and we haven't been able to finalize the review of a second one. So it's partially a question of capacity, and this is something that we need also to consider when we look at agency accreditation, etc. It takes time for agencies to really build their own systems and their own capacities to produce quality GEF projects that adhere to all the standards of quality, technical assurance, and safeguards, etc. So that's the reason why we don't have that. The other thing is, the 18 agencies are not equal in scope. We have a handful of agencies that are global in nature. They tend to be more well represented because the options are greater for them. Then we have another roster of agencies that are regional. So the scope and the ability of them to pick up a significant piece of the portfolio gets reduced from being a global to a regional entity. And then you have the national agencies that are entirely restricted to a country. So they'll never be important forces into the deconcentration of the portfolio, if I may say so, in that direction. The many comments from the project in India, and including the ones, and thanks Ritesh for your later remarks. As a matter of fact, we have been in touch with certain council members that made very important statements and extended very important guidance now, as well as of India and the agency UNIDO. And I'm sure that they will be working together to bring the project in the preparation phase to a good outcome. And so thanks for all the work that it took to get this important project going forward. The question on gender from Sweden, thank you again. And just pointing out that we have been providing reports through the scorecard in the section that tracks gender of all GEF projects, including for this work program, and we'll continue to work towards the goal, as you stated, Karen, to have every project well addressed in the gender component. Question, Stephanie, on your question on on NGI, project use of chemicals and waste. So we don't have in the current design a baseline for chemicals and waste because we are not intending this by design to generate GEBs specifically this focal area, but project does mention chemicals and waste as potential co-benefits, and we'll seek to provide ahead of the CEO endorsement some sort of baseline that we can derive and potentially include, if possible, chemicals and waste goals. So thanks for the suggestion, which we find very pertinent. Let me see. I think, William, that I've covered all but one important question from Australia that I feel could be addressed by Carlos Manuel or by Francoise on the transparency framework. I think they're better placed to address it. Just one point, Tom. Thanks for your question and thanks for the pointer in relation to blue bonds. As a matter of fact, the GEF has worked with the World Bank on the first blue bond ever, the Seychelles, a couple of years ago. So we plan to do more in that area. And we actually, the GEF Secretariat, part of a working group on a SIDS bond. So there's a lot of work and a lot of potential there that we like to explore even further. Over to you, William.
Thank you, Gustavo. William, with regards to the quality of the ODA, Francois will address the floor. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Chair, and thanks to Australia for the question on transparency and relating the issue to some of the ratings that came on the quality ODA report. The ratings in that report were linked to the fact that at the time of the cutoff date for that analysis, we had not yet reported the GEF portfolio into the IATI framework, which we since have done. In fact, since the month of August of this year, all of our projects are listed in IATI, and that includes the full-size project, the medium-sized project, and the enabling activities. We have already since then provided an update, since we will be doing this on a regular basis, and in fact expect to do another one before the end of the year. So that allows me an opportunity to comment on the increased transparency made available in uniform standards for all GEF projects. And we certainly hope that in the future, it would, once taken into consideration, it would considerably improve the quality ODA ratings. Thanks very much.
Over to you. Thanks, Francois. Over to you, William. I think we lost William, and since he is going through the list of speakers, let me check the chat box.
I don't think we have any more questions, Carlos.
No, I don't think we got any more questions. Spain was the last one over here. Yeah, you're right. Unless anybody else feels the need to take the floor, please let us know in the chat box. Okay.
We have no requests, Carlos Manuel, for the floor.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Gustavo, for your response to the questions and reactions to the different comments, and thanks everybody for the lively interaction with regards to the work program. With this, I would like to invite Council to adopt the draft decision. But before getting into that, I would like to highlight what Gabriela indicated to us with regards to the last paragraph of the proposed draft text GF/C 61/06 with regards to UNDP. Our recommendation is to delete this last paragraph, as we fully included everything with regards to this last paragraph in the decision that we took with relation to agenda item number 4. So the proposed text for approval for council will not include this last paragraph. Having made this explanation, again, I would like to invite council to adopt the draft decision included in document GF/C 61/06. I don't see anybody asking for the floor, so decision approved. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks. Let's go now to our next agenda item for today, which is the agenda item number 11, assessment of the pilot on adjusted co-sharing arrangement. For this, I would like to invite Francois to introduce document GF/C 61/09, assessment of the pilot on adjusted co-sharing arrangement. Francois, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Chair. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. It's my pleasure to introduce the document entitled Assessment of the Pilot on Adjusted Co-Sharing Arrangements to the Council. The document highlights the background to the arrangements relating to the elected co-chair as expressed in various sources. So first relevant source is the instrument on this, which in its paragraph 18 states that, quote, at each meeting, the council shall elect a chairperson from among its members for the duration of that meeting, alternating between recipient and non-recipient council members, unquote. The second relevant source to that consideration is Council Decision 22/2020, which is based on the report from the ad hoc working group on governance. The council decided at that date to, quote, pilot for 1 year an adjusted co-chairing arrangement and to appoint the elected chairperson from among its members for the duration of 1 year instead of just one meeting, in order to facilitate a stronger involvement of the elected chairperson in providing input into agenda, the chairing of the meeting, and the meeting report, unquote. Council in that decision also decided to consider an assessment of the pilot and proposed option for the future, including, but not limited to, recommending to amend paragraph 18 of the governing instrument at its 61st meeting. A third relevant source to this topic is in Council Decision 3/2021, where Mrs. Mette Moglestu, council member from Denmark, Norway, Latvia, and Lithuania, was elected chair for the year 2021. Finally, in Decision 23/2020, the conduct of the assessment was entrusted to the Working Group on Governance. So, considering these four grounding in prior decisions, the way forward on this topic is mapped by the set of existing council decisions. And let me observe that the Working Group on Governance, however, has not met during 2021. And as a result, there is not yet an assessment from the working group on the pilot, and therefore no proposal for decision to be considered at this meeting. Therefore, what is proposed in the decision that we submitted is that the council requests the Working Group on Governance to submit its assessment of the pilot co-chairing arrangement and options for the future, and recommendation as may be necessary, as requested in the decisions that I have referenced. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Francois, for introducing the topic and explaining the proposed decision text. I think at this moment it is appropriate for me to invite Mette to share her experience in this pilot.
Thank you very much, Carlos Manuel, and good morning, good evening to all. Firstly, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the council members and the representative for the civil society network for the constructive atmosphere on all items on our agenda. This is crucial for the importance of the work we have at hand, and also makes the co-chairing very smooth. So what have we been doing? As co-chair, together with my team, we have been involved in the preparations of the 2 council meetings this year. We have commented on the agenda before the meetings. We have discussed the sequencing of the agenda items. We have discussed the sharing of the chairing, the summary of the chairs, and also being involved in some of the decisions to the council before the meetings. We have been available to council members for questions and comments ahead of the meetings and during the meetings. And before the June meetings, we were also invited to take part in the regional consultation, and that was very useful. In general, we have worked very closely with the GEF Secretariat, and we appreciate very much the hard work of the secretariats that's being put into the preparations of the meetings, and also in between. And all our dialogue with the secretariat has been very positive. The secretariat has responded to all our questions and comments and requests, smaller and bigger, and we appreciate that very much. For us, it sounds like a good idea that the working group on governance should do the evaluation of the pilot, and we remain available for consultation with the governance group when they will assess this. And we will also, of course, be available to the next co-chairing team to share lessons learned. And just to sum up, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the council for entrusting us with this responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mette, and for me, it has been a pleasure, delightful to work with you and your team. So we thank you on behalf of everybody on the Secretariat for your leadership, your wisdom, your counseling, and your hard work throughout the many different council meetings, but also in preparation and with respect to the follow-up on many of the council decisions. So we're very grateful with you and with Lauren, and we look forward to continue to work on this co-chairing scheme. So thank you so much. With this, I would like to open the floor to consult for comments and questions to Francois, to Mette, or myself. As usual, William will help us with the list of speakers. Over to you, William.
Thank you very much. Gabriela, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, William. And let me start with a sincere gratitude and thankfulness to Mette for taking on the role. You did a great job. Thank you so much for co-chairing. It was a pleasure to work with you and your team. We very much appreciated it. with regards to the decision and the document, we would like to thank the Secretariat for the preparation of the document, and we share the understanding of the Secretariat that the assessment of the pilot co-chairing arrangement is pending. But we would like to change the draft decision to ensure that the Council can still take a decision on the co-chairing arrangement in writing if the assessment is favorable, to adjust the co-chairing arrangement in the GEF instrument in time for consideration by the General Assembly. Because we have so far, as I said before, a very positive perception of the co-chairing pilot and would therefore propose to continue it for at least another year. And therefore, we also propose to amend the decision in this regard. In fact, Switzerland would like to propose amending the decision in that sense, and at the same time request the GEF Secretariat to prepare a draft amendment to the governing instruments to allow for a one-year co-chairing arrangement for the Council with an elected chairperson from among its members for the duration of 1 year. And the amendment we propose is at the end, when you say as requested in these decisions, in the decision paragraph, we would say prior to the 60-second meeting for a possible GEF Council decision in writing. And then we suggest an additional paragraph that would read, the Council further decides to extend the current pilot co-chairing arrangement until the 60-second Council meeting and encourages the developing country GEF Council members to nominate a possible GEF Council co-chair as soon as possible for election by the GEF Council. And with that, we also then would have the experience of a developed country co-chair for 2 sessions for an entire year and a developing country co-chair, which was the original intent of the group. Thank you for that.
Thank you very much. So I see Ben, you're requesting the floor. Please go ahead.
Yeah, just very briefly, just to say, firstly, as others have said in the chat, many thanks again to Mette and her team for doing a great job in very difficult circumstances and co-chairing these meetings virtually. And we very much welcome these new co-chair arrangements for getting greater consistency engagement on the agenda with obviously good engagement with the GEF Secretariat and the co-chair. Just in terms of Switzerland's proposal, I think that makes a lot of sense. We were going to also raise something about what's going to happen for the next meeting. I think your suggested amendments of the decision, I think, clarifies that. So we very much support that. Thank you very much.
Okay, I see, yes, a lot of notes agreeing with Switzerland, but nobody else seems to be requesting the floor. So back to you, Chair.
Thanks, William. So based on the, can you guide us, William, on based on Switzerland proposal? So what is the procedure? We will include Switzerland's proposal into the decision, into the draft decision, and we will come back to Council with the final draft text.
Yes, thank you. I think it would be good if Gabriela could send us the proposal. I think we look at the additional paragraph, I think might not be necessary since we are going to elect a co-chair now for the next session, but I'd like to see the text first. And yes, then we will send out a revised text that you can pick up again tomorrow.
We will do that. So we would work with Gabriela on that draft decision based on her recommendation. If we got enough time to do it today, we will do it today at the end of the day, otherwise we'll have it for tomorrow. Thank you so much. Thanks, Mette, and thanks everybody who addressed the floor. So let me now go to our next agenda item, which is agenda item number 12, note on the organization of the 7th GEF Assembly. I would like to invite once more Francois to introduce document GEF 2021/C69/9, which is a note on the organization of the 7th GEF Assembly. Francois, the floor is yours.
Thanks very much, Chair. And it's my pleasure to introduce the document titled Note on the Organization of the 7th GEF Assembly. Every 4 years, the GEF organizes an assembly with representatives of all participants. At the 59th Council meeting in December 2020, the Council decided to hold its 62nd meeting back-to-back with the 7th GEF Assembly the week of May 22nd, 2022, which is the decision 34/2020. The COVID-19 pandemic, however, has had an impact on this timing and will require the dates of the Assembly to be moved. The Council will consider a decision on these dates by mail at a later date. The pandemic has also impacted the host and venue for the 7th GEF Assembly, which are still pending. The Secretariat continues to work on this issue and expects that a decision can be taken as soon as an offer to host is received. The holding of the 7th GEF Assembly has already been planned and budgeted for within the framework of the GEF 7 replenishment negotiations. The estimated budget is $1.7 million based on experience from the organization of the last 2 GEF assemblies in Mexico in 2014 for a total of $1.9 million, and in Vietnam in 2018 for a total of $1.8 million. This budget, this proposed budget would cover travel and hotel accommodations for participants, presenters, and special invitees, CSOs and staff, reception and cultural events, interpretation, exhibition, communication and reporting, including video, conference support, general operations such as copying and storage cost, site visits, and planning missions to the host country, which are critical to the organizing of these events successfully. Therefore, the Secretariat is requesting approval of an indicative lump sum of $1.7 million for the special initiative to fund the organization of the 7th Assembly. This amount will allow the Secretariat to start the organization of the 7th Assembly and associated meetings. The Secretariat will report back as soon as possible and propose a decision by mail on the country and venue. Thank you.
Thanks to you, Francois. I just want to compliment to what Francois just indicated with regards to the fact that we have ongoing conversation with the country. These are advanced or ongoing conversations, and I feel that we are on track to be able to present very soon details of with regards to where we will organize the next GEF Assembly. Of course, the pandemic has been a big burden to all of us and to some of the interest parties in hosting our GEF Assembly. In terms of what we have in front of us, it's extremely critical to present to Council our budget so we can have the possibilities to financially plan as we normally do. I hope that in the next month, we can be able to communicate with more details on where the next GEF Assembly will be done. So with this, I would like to open the floor for questions and comments for our Council. Please, William, help us with the list of speakers.
Thank you very much. Rob, you have the floor.
Actually, good morning, all. It's going to be the Treasury side of the
Abigail,
GEF
sorry.
representation this morning. We're not trying to confuse you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. We we are happy to approve this budget allocation. We appreciate that these are trying circumstances in terms of planning meetings, but we certainly want you to be able to have the resources to do so should circumstances permit us being able to all come together in one place. It seems like, flexibility needs to be the order of the day for everybody. But we hope that something can come together. So I will close there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Abigail. Alain, you have the floor.
Merci, William. Je m'exprime en français. 3 points de notre côté. Le premier point sur le budget. Nous sommes d'accord pour approuver la décision concernant le budget proposé. On note toutefois qu'il s'agit d'un budget qui reste général dans la mesure où nous n'avons pas d'informations précises sur le lieu de l'Assemblée à ce stade. Second point sur les dates de la 4e réunion de reconstitution et de la 7e Assemblée. Nous comprenons bien qu'elles peuvent être modifiées. En revanche, nous souhaiterions que ces dates soient fixées le plus rapidement possible pour des raisons d'organisation, consultation avec le Conseil, et aussi en tenant compte des dates des autres conseils, des autres fonds, pour éviter des recoupements qui seraient malheureux. Enfin, un 3e point, et une interrogation de notre part, dans l'hypothèse où une décision ne pourrait pas être prise avant fin juin, dans quelle mesure il y aura un impact sur les opérations du fonds, puisqu'on ne pourrait pas approuver en fait la reconstitution. Donc, on aimerait une clarification sur ce point. Merci beaucoup.
Merci, Alain. Kazuo, you have the floor.
Okay. Thank you very much giving me opportunity. We can accept of the 1.7 million for the plan of the budget, but I can let you know that some of the situation in Japan for the next week of the IDA 20 replacement of the meeting, even though we plan to hold of the meeting of the face-to-face or the in-person, but just to change of the situation by the new coronavirus variant, then we can change. We have to change it to the hybrid of the type. Then finally of the only online of the meeting. Just very difficult of the judgment of the decide of such a change of the modality. In case of the GEF of the assembly, much more larger number of the participants. Of course, of the GEF secretary can of the coordinate with the host country, but we don't want to pay over the extra cost and of extra burden to the participants. So of the you may of the consider of the carefully of the such as arrangement based on the new coronavirus of the variant. The other aspect of the we heard of the some of the other international treaty meeting of the COP15 of the ITPGRFA or Ramphal of the treaty of the other meeting related to the GEF. You make you can coordinate with such a meeting, and then because of their meeting would be delayed due to the corona point, then you can think about the such as a coordination with the other major meeting. Then you can make a clear of the such a division of labor and from the budget sharing of with host country. We'd like to know that some of your idea of the such as a timing and host country later. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Gisela, you have the floor.
Thank you, William, and thanks, Françoise, for the explanation. And for providing the document. We acknowledge the estimated indicative lump sum of 1.7 million. However, and we can endorse, of course, this very conservative estimation. However, we would like to ask why it has been provided a table including the approved and actual 5th Assembly budget and the proposed 6th Assembly budget instead of the approved and actual 6th Assembly budget and the proposed 7th Assembly budget with a relative breakdown. I think that it could have been more useful to better understand why we reached this estimation of 1.7. Having said this, as I said, we totally agree that this is a mere and very conservative estimation. I would like to add a comment about the organization. The General Assembly is a very big event with the participation of many representatives from many countries and organizations. And we are at the end of 2021, and this assembly should take place in June, more or less. And I think that there is a very short time to have a better idea of where this assembly could take place. And we are glad to know that one country could be willing to host it. Furthermore, I would like to associate my comments to Japan, saying that the pandemic situation is still jeopardizing the world. And I wonder if could be more advisable to think about a GEF assembly virtual. It could be perhaps safer, and why do not consider to postpone an assembly in person to the following year. Of course, I think that we should consider seriously to have it at least a hybrid meeting in the best option. I think, yes, this is everything from my side. Thank you.
Thank you very much. René, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Yes, we just had a question similar to France. The budget seems a bit general. There's a budget for example, for travel and hotel costs of participants. And of course, we support the idea that if we organize something like that, that everybody has the opportunity to attend. But could you perhaps clarify a little bit more how that's what the buildup of the budget for travel and hotel costs of participants? Thank you.
Thank you very much, René. Annette, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Just very brief point. Germany approves the budget proposal, and we do notice the difficult situation under the pandemic and everything, and also duly noted what Italy just referred to as the special circumstances at having that June next year. Nonetheless, I would like to encourage the GEF Secretariat to explore further about site visits to projects. I think that's always something that for us headquarter people and creatures is hugely illuminating and actually provides insights that otherwise we can't have. And especially if we are together and can jointly discuss that, that would be hugely beneficial, I think, for understanding more about the GEF partnership. But obviously, I mean, everything is said under the premise that if we are in a position to meet in person at all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Victoria, you have the floor.
Thank you, William. Just to say that we can also support the estimated budget to facilitate the planning under the condition that the meeting will be held in a physical format, and because we assume that a virtual meeting would require a very different kind of budget. And in general, in terms of virtual and physical meetings, I would also like to make the suggestion or say that we would be open to, in the future, alternate between virtual and physical meetings of the GEF Council. That is a slightly different topic, but just to bring that to your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sano, you have the floor.
Thank you very much.
We have one suggestion focusing on this assembly, upcoming assembly. So, you know, the empowerment never takes place unless we give the opportunity. So I would like to suggest that please give the civil society network to organize, invite, and arrange all for the civil society representatives with the support from the GEF Secretariat. What used to happen, Secretariat used to do, and then we supported. But now we do, let the Secretariat support. Help us to be more capable so that we can add value in higher level. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That seems to end the list of speakers. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, William, and thanks everybody for the comments and questions. So let me pass it over to Francois so she can address the questions and the comments. Francois.
Thanks very much, Chair, and thanks to everyone for the expression of support in proceeding with this decision. So let me clarify a few points about the amount of 1.7 and the table that has been provided to share some degree of detailed information about what holding an assembly usually entails. The reason why, and that's my answer to Italy and others who have queried this, the reason why we are not projecting cost for the next assembly is because typically the cost is quite sensitive to the choice of venue. That has been our experience in the past. And as travel is involved and local costs are also paramount to some of these expenditures. Therefore, what we're really proposing is the approval of that notional amount, which we expect would be sufficient. And we would, of course, not use it if the assembly was not held in a physical location. And we would also adjust the estimates within that envelope should we end up with a venue that would, for instance, drive lower costs. So we would pay the closest attention to keeping expenditure cost efficient in this respect. Let me also address a very essential question raised by Franz and others, which was about what would happen to the path to decision-making to secure continuity of GEF engagements should we not be able to hold assembly in conjunction with Council, which is quite likely at this point. In practice, GEF 8 can begin on the basis of the Council decision that approves the replenishment package. And this package is, of course, also submitted to the Assembly, but an Assembly decision is not required to start execution of GEF 8. So the Assembly can safely be held later on at a separate date to be agreed and discussed. And we would nevertheless be able to launch the work of GEF 8. On the point raised by Japan and Italy and others relative to the possible opportunity to modify with time the modalities by which we hold Council or Assembly, that might be worthy of a conversation in the future, and we might be under constraint on in terms of the capacity to fully hold it physically. So we would indeed carry on the thinking on either hybrid modalities if we were facing circumstances that do not allow our participants to get together. We also note in this respect the point made by Germany, which is in fact always part of our planning. We see the value of site visits. It is an opportunity to bring the whole set of participants around concrete impact of the GEF program, and it is very much part of what an assembly is about as well. So we hope to face circumstances that would allow us to hold this into the future as well. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Francois, for your intervention. I would like to see if there are any other council members who are willing to react to the responses from Francois. Do we have any other speaker with him?
Nobody else is requesting the floor right now. Thank you.
Okay, well, having completed this discussion for this agenda item, I would like to invite council to adopt the decision draft that is included in document GF/C61/09.
Te lo respondí, ¿no?
Okay, thanks. I don't see anybody asking for the floor. Thanks. This decision is approved. Thank you so much to council on your support. We will keep you very much informed on all the different happenings with regards to the organization of the assembly. And
sorry, sorry to interrupt you. There was a question from Stephanie that the council needs to take a decision on the full replenishment package before the end of June 2022, and that is correct.
Yeah, that is correct.
And I also see Alain or Stephanie, I don't know, Alain requesting the floor.
Please.
Or maybe I answered the question.
No, that's clear now. This was just to answer our question. Thank you. Merci.
Our pleasure, Alain. So with this, with the council approve the draft decision that is included in document GF/C61/09. Thank you so much. With this, we go now to our next agenda item, which is item number 14, other businesses. It is my pleasure to invite our dear co-chair to chair this agenda item. Mete, over to you.
Thank you very much, Carlos Manuel. And to remind the council which items we have under this agenda item. First, we will address the new date for the 62nd council meeting. Second, we will address the election of members to the ethics committee. Thirdly, we will look at the election of members to the working group on governance. Fourth, we will look into the election of a new co-chair. And I have got a message that Germany maybe would like to add a point here. So I would like to give the floor to Germany.
Thank you very much, Mette. Is it just now for introducing my point and then it's going to be called up later on?
Just to introduce your point, and then we will take it as the fifth point on this agenda item.
Okay, thanks very much. Germany would like to introduce a point on gender being tackled not only in GEF, but also in all implementing agencies and across climate funds.
Thank you very much, Germany. If this proposal by Germany is okay by others, we will address this as the fifth issue on other business. I see no request for the floor, so we will proceed as such. First, we will then address the date for the 62nd council meeting, and I would like to invite William to introduce the draft decision. William, please.
Thank you very much, Mette. You may all recall that in decision 34/2020, the council decided to hold the 62nd council meeting and the assembly back-to-back the last week in May of 2022. Obviously, because of the multiple reasons that we all know, that is not possible. And based on the brief discussion we've already had on the assembly may need to be postponed even further. So we have to take up really the date for the 62nd meeting. And it has to be before the end of June, as we just discussed, thanks to Francis' question. And originally we had thought of holding this the last week in June, but we understand there's a GCF board meeting that week. So we are proposing the week of June 20th. Of course, we don't know if it's going to be hybrid in presence or virtual, but that's basically the date, and we will adjust the meeting times accordingly. So the proposal is to have the 62nd meeting of the council the week of June 20th, and that implies that the CSO, the consultations with CSO will be the previous Friday, and the executive session to receive the SRC report will be the previous Thursday. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, William. I will now open the floor for comments or question to this proposed revised decision. I see no requests. Do I see? Maybe I could ask you, William, back to you to announce the list of speakers.
Of course, but I don't see anybody asking for the floor right now.
Okay.
We got Maria.
Maria from CSO Network, please.
You're muted, María.
I'm mute, ahora sí. La pregunta es focalizarnos en si el modo es virtual y si el modo es presencial por la organización del día del foro de sociedad civil. O sea, porque es un día completo, es un día de una presentación de toda la sociedad civil global. Este foro siempre ha sido un gran momento para interactuar y mostrar los resultados reales que tiene el GEF en el territorio. Y esto creo que cambia muchísimo si es un día completo en un foro y en forma virtual. Y si esto sucedería, creo que tenemos una gran pérdida de oportunidad de interactuar. Por eso es muy importante tomar esta decisión y ver cuáles son los espacios reales que va a tener la sociedad civil global. Gracias.
Thank you, Maria. Let me just answer that briefly, because that refers to the assembly. Here we're talking about a council meeting. So it is different. It's just a regular CSO consultation, just like the one we had last Friday.
Okay,
so that's it.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Richard, you have the floor.
Thank you, William. Perhaps I missed it, but I just want to clarify the expectation around virtual versus physical and where that's likely to land with this meeting. And secondly, I'll need to double check the timing, but I'm not sure if it impacts on others, but that the timing will be immediately preceding and potentially clash the World Heritage Committee meeting in Russia next year. I think it's okay from my perspective, but that's one potential clash. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Abigail?
Thank you, William. I just have a question for clarification. I appreciate you would want to do the council meeting with the assembly if you can, but if you don't know when the assembly is going to be precisely, and you do need to separate the two, I guess my question would be, why not keep the council meeting in May? I think we can certainly do the June meeting. Having GCF and GEF even not overlapping, but quite close to each other, still presents a little bit of a logistics challenge for us. It's certainly manageable, but I'm just trying to understand what the logic, if for moving the council to June is, unless you're definitely trying to do it at the same time as the assembly. Thank you.
Well, that seems to end the list of speakers for now. And so I think really the question is that posed by Abigail. And the reason is that UNCCD, if I'm not mistaken, has its COP in May. And so we will be overlapping with them, which of course is a big clash.
Yeah, and also we were informed recently by CBD that they may be changing the dates in April for COP15, which means that they may move it because of a procedure of publication of documents. So they may move the CBD COP15 a couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks, which will make it very difficult for us to think on that same month for the GEF Council.
Yeah. And if I may add, yet another factor is, the council has to receive all the documents at least 4 weeks before, and that includes the replenishment package, which in turn has to be finished by the replenishment, prepared, and finalized in texts. And the trustee has a lot of work to do between the last meeting and the council meeting to make sure that all their side of that preparation is correct. So it seems very unlikely that we'd be able to have all that ready by the end of May. So there we are. And thank you to Australia for bringing up another meeting. I suppose there'll always be some kind of overlap. We just try to avoid those meetings that are closely related to the GEF work, like the conventions and the GCF. So I think that's back to you, Madam Co-Chair.
Thank you very much, William, for the clarification and for council members to raise the points. I did not hear anything that I think hinder us to take the decision as proposed by William. So I do now invite the council to adopt the draft decision distributed by email and read out, and I will read it again. The council, recalling its decision 34/2020, decides that it will hold its 62nd meeting the week of June 20th, 2022. I see no request for the floor, and it is so decided. Thank you very much. Now we will go to the election of members to the Ethics Committee. And William, I will invite you to introduce the draft decision designating the members of the Ethics Committee, please.
Thank you very much, Co-Chair. The term of members of the Ethics Committee, according to the rules, is 2 years. And so we have turnover every 2 years, but we also have turnover because, as we all know, council members and alternates end their terms on the council. So when they do, then they end their terms on these committees also. So we have one member who is whose term has not finished, and that's Joe Gallagher of Ireland, who's the alternate to Spain in that constituency. But we needed to, the council needs to appoint the other members of the committee for a total of 5. And so we have our colleague Yoshiko from Japan, who has kindly agreed to stay on for another term of 2 years and to continue to be the chair. Laverne Quealy from the Caribbean constituency, Miguel Stutzin from the Southern Cone of South America constituency, and Gerard Boussier from the constituency of Comoros, Djibouti, Eritrea, Kenya, and so on, East Africa. So these are the members proposed and the terms of their membership, which is 2 years. So that's the proposal. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And thank you for the council members that has agreed to be on the list of being elected. Now I will offer the floor for questions from the council. And if none, I will invite the council to adopt the draft decision. But first, I would like to see if anyone has any comments or questions. I see none, and then I invite the council to adopt the draft decision circulated by email and laid out by the secretary of the council just now. I see no request for the floor, and this decision is adopted. Thank you very much, and thank you particularly to the new members of the Ethics Committee. Now we go to the election of members to the working group on governance. And again, William, I give the word back to you to introduce the draft decision and the members, new members, please.
Thank you very much, Co-Chair. Well, when we discussed the issue of co-chairing, Francoise mentioned some of the background to the creation of this working group. And one of the reasons why it wasn't able to meet last year is because basically all of the members left the council, except for Matthew from the United States. So now we have to reconstitute this working group. And it's according to the decision when it was created, it was supposed to have 4 developing and 4 developed members. So far we have volunteers 3 and 3, but I think that's sufficient to take a decision and let the committee work. And any other volunteers who wish to join can let us know, and we can then have another decision to add them. So Gabriela from Switzerland, and Matthew from the United States, and Tom from Canada have kindly agreed to serve on this working group. And from developing countries, Brenda from Mexico and Central America, Baba Darame from Senegal, and Samantha Justin from the Caribbean are therefore to be appointed by the adoption of this decision. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, William. Can I then ask, I invite the council for any comments or questions to this proposal, and I ask you, William, to announce any list of speakers. Yeah.
I don't see any list of anybody requesting the floor right now.
But from Austria is no, Australia.
Oh, sorry, I can put myself forward as number. Oh, excellent, good, thank you. Sorry, I didn't read the message. Definitely. So when we put the decision into the summary of the co-chairs, we will add Richard as another member of this working group. So thank you very much, Richard, for that.
Thank you very much. With that addition, I invite the council to adopt the draft decision circulated by email. I see no request for the floor, and it is so decided. Thank you very much to the members that has agreed to serve as members of this committee. Thank you. Now we will go to the election of a new co-chair. May I ask you, William, to say some words on how we proceed now, for which period that we will elect a new co-chair, since the decision on the co-chairing arrangement was not approved on the last agenda item?
Well, thank you very much. I don't think there is a contradiction between those two decisions, because in any case, we have to elect, the council has to elect a new elected chairperson to succeed you in that role. And until the instrument is changed, the rotation remains as stated. And that means that it is time now for a council member from the developing countries to be elected. So we're talking about the 62nd meeting, and that's, as I say, that is the rule in the instrument. But the reason I think we're putting forward the idea that it should be elected now, and I think Gabriela mentioned that already earlier when she was talking about the co-chairing arrangements, is that this is electing a person with enough time to participate in the organization of the council has, as you put it very well, proven to be very good. And so that's something that we do not want to lose. And therefore, even while we wait for a change of the instrument, electing the person in the previous meeting means then that person is fully able to participate in the preparation of the meeting that they are going to chair. So that is the reason for having it now. And I hope that was clear enough. And you can therefore, if you wish, open the floor to the nominations.
Thank you, but I also, firstly, I see
Switzerland.
Yeah, maybe just to clarify, we agree with you, William, that we should definitely elect someone at this council meeting already if we can. So if there's somebody, great. The only amendment we have, which might affect this person that is considering to run as a co-chair, is that this person, we would welcome if this person would also be ready to be a co-chair for 2 sessions, because the amendment to the decision we made is that the pilot would continue for an entire year. So the person would co-chair for an entire year. But if there is someone that we can elect right now, we would be very happy to do so.
Well, thank you for that. We would have to consult that person whether they are available for the full year. And honestly, I don't think I can answer that question now. So you're proposing then that we postpone this decision to a decision by mail once we have consulted?
May I ask Switzerland to come back and respond to William's question, if possible?
Well, the first question is who is if there's already a person which is ready to take on the task, and this person is in the call right now, and is ready to say whether they would be willing to engage for an entire year, that would be great. And otherwise, we understand they could also probably consider overnight and come back tomorrow, since we still will meet again tomorrow.
Okay. The only thing that we face in these cases sometimes is, as you know, constituencies rotate their seat. The person who is going to be fulfilling the role of council member and alternate. So that rotation may affect this decision. I guess we can then consult and take this decision up tomorrow.
Yes, I think that we will consult. Firstly, I would just like to state that we have a candidate for the co-chairing for developing countries, and that is excellent. And we will do as you propose, William. We will consult with that constituency overnight and hear whether it is possible to have the co-chairing done for a year. and we will come back with a proposed decision on this agenda item tomorrow morning. Thank you very much. Then we go to the do we have anyone that wanted to take the floor, William?
Well, I know what Chile and Canada were going to say, but I think that has been overcome by the fact that we're going to do this exercise tomorrow. But let me give the floor then to Feturi from the Asia Pacific region. Feturi, you have
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. A very simple request. Now that our substantive council member has other engagement, can I be included in the circulation list, especially with the proposed draft decisions for the co-chairmanship list, so that we can also have an input into this particular issue? Thank you.
Yes, of course. I mean, the decision is, as you know, is based on a nomination, and we haven't had a nomination yet for the reasons that we were discussing. So we don't have a draft decision. There will be a nomination tomorrow after we've done the necessary consultations with the person who had volunteered to take on this job. But it also has to be a discussion with the constituency, because that person is a council member for a specific constituency. So we'll do the consultations, and of course, Ambassador, you will be involved for obvious reasons. Okay, I guess we can move on then.
Thank you very much, William. And then we will move to the last item on this agenda item, and that is the gender issue that was introduced by Germany. And may I now ask you, Annette, to introduce the proposed issue, please.
Yeah. Thanks very much, and also thanks very much for taking up valuable time of everybody. And I do realize that the framing of my agenda item wasn't very elegant. So if we can find something for the minutes later on that's a little bit more appropriate, I'd be grateful. What we'd like to discuss is that we did indeed see a lot of progress in the GEF in recent years with regards to gender mainstreaming. And we'd like to applaud that. Yet the OPS 7 report has also shown that several implementation challenges on the revised policy on gender equality still exist. These include uneven patterns of gender data collection across the agencies, for example, as well as internal agency level challenges in terms of sensitizing, educating staff on gender equality concepts. The existing initiatives, such as the GEF Gender Partnership Platforms and the GEF e-course on gender environment, are very good starting points. We do acknowledge that. And they do help to address these issues. But the results of the OPS 7 have also shown that this is not enough. And more efforts are needed, for example, with regards to gender mainstreaming in the IPs. So we hence would like to discuss these issues in a little bit more structured way within this council meeting, to exchange ideas of how to further strengthen the implementation of gender equality on the operational level. We would therefore like to know what the GEF Secretariat intends to do to strengthen even more gender aspects under GEF 8. Will these efforts also be depicted in the expected overview, linking OPS recommendations with intended actions under the program and policy cycles? Moreover, how can the GEF align its gender efforts with other funds, like, for example, the GCF Adaptation Fund or CIFS? We believe it is key to create a level playing field here to foster learning, maximize synergies, and lower implementation burden for agencies and recipient countries in particular in project implementation under the various multilateral climate funds. And one last thing or option or proposal to think about is, would the council deem it worthwhile to establish an open-ended working group on gender? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Annette. May I invite the Secretariat to respond to the issues raised by Germany?
No. Yes, William.
Please go ahead.
No, I was going to ask Francois to update and respond to Annette good observations and recommendations.
Thanks very much to Annette from Germany, and it certainly echoes comments made earlier by Denmark, and we take very good note of the specific queries that you have listed. We certainly are very interested in aligning around these objectives, as we certainly have ample evidence that early and systematic gender information in projects and participation of women and girls into not just the execution of projects, but ahead of that, their design and the consultations that come with their elaboration is a very essential step, not to just equity, even though it does matter, but to impact as well on global environment benefits. So what we could propose in response to your query here would be, since we have an annual report that we come to you with in June on gender, we would propose to actually report further on the dimensions that you have raised and conduct further analysis in such a way that we could have perhaps a conversation around the same. So let me suggest that as a next step. Unless you want a further discussion to happen now, I think we could certainly bring further elements to make that discussion useful to Council.
Thank you very much, Francois. I have noted several requests and questions in the chat, and I will deal with them after this agenda item. But before I go back to Germany and ask if the Secretariat's proposal is okay, I would like to give the floor to Sana for a quick comment on gender, please.
Many thanks, Madam Co-Chair. The quick comment is, we know that GEF is contributing to gender equality. My question is, would you kindly explain at least 2, 3, or 4 elements that you are working on it to facilitate the gender equality? And what is your expectation after GEF 7 or GEF 8? What level of achievement you are expecting on the issue of gender equality? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sano. I do guess that we will get some updates on that also in the annual report that we will get in June. But I would like to ask Francois to respond to Sano's questions, please.
Thanks very much, Chair, and thanks to the CSO network for the question. I think the intervention from Germany earlier has already acknowledged that much has happened in the field of gender, above and beyond, of course, the adoption of policies and guidelines and the ongoing effort that we're having to make sure that we run an independent evaluation that will assess further in implementation and not just in policy some of the potential gaps that would still be there with our agencies. So this effort has really been ongoing for the past 5 years, in addition to an effort to engage the partnership as a whole, be it by exchange of knowledge, which has been a regular feature of our work with agencies and with country on gender issues, or whether with agencies, through agencies we treat, to make sure that we have a similar understanding of how to inform projects. We have also ramped up in the past 4 years the project reviews that are going on at the time of submission of both PIFs and endorsement to systematically oversee that gender issues are appropriately included. We, of course, also are engaged at the strategic level to make sure that entry points that are particularly relevant to gender contributions are identified upstream from programming, and that's an exercise which is going on in the dialogue over the impact programs of the future impact programs of GEF 8, as well as within the existing set of projects, having identified the high impact areas. I think we have made a particular effort actually to make that visible and explained in the programming directions of GEF 8. So all that work is moving on in parallel, together with, of course, more data collection, which is systematically taken in at the time of project submission. Now, on this point, I do want to share a disclaimer, which is sometimes, on which we have heard at times confusion. Not all projects, well, all projects should engage appropriately women and girls in consultations, participation, and critical roles in projects, but not all projects are necessarily projects that make an advance in the 3 dimensions that we are measuring and monitoring in terms of results on gender. So, for instance, not all projects have the opportunity to influence for women and girls to have a greater role on governance over natural resources, right? So some of the percentages that we are sharing here in our scorecard and in our annual monitoring report are actually not expected to reach 100% achievement. And I think it's an important distinction, right? So this gives you a direction for the many avenues that are under work. I know in response to Sano that we don't always have neither the baseline nor the sex disaggregated indicators that ideally we would want to have for every project. So I very much hear you through this question, but we are working in all of those dimensions through continuous progress. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Françoise. And I would like to ask Germany if the proposed way forward is agreeable to you. Annette, please.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much, Françoise, for addressing the issues I raised. Very much appreciated. I think it's an excellent step forward to have an additional report in June on gender implementation and the impact and equity you mentioned of involving women and girls in project design, but also in governance issues in running the projects. What I also mentioned earlier on in my first intervention was concerning aligning across the climate funds. I think if you could address that in the report as well, that would be extremely welcome. And please feel free to reach out to us, and if we can assist in any way, we'd be more than happy to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Germany, and we will make sure that this issue is noted in the chair's summary. Then I note that France proposed that the Secretariat give some information about the process regarding the 3rd and 4th meeting of the replenishment. I suggest that the Secretariat prepare some comments on that for tomorrow morning, if that is agreeable. And I see Carlos Manuel is nodding, so we will proceed like that, if that is okay with France. I have also noted a couple of propositions from the civil society network. These comments or questions are suggestions well noted, and we will also ask the Secretariat to provide us with some answers to these questions tomorrow. Thank you very much. Then I think we have concluded this agenda item. And I will give the floor back to you, Carlos Manuel. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Thank you so much. And we have 2 more agenda items. These are basically for your information agenda items before we enter into the 31st LDCF SACF Council meeting, which are agenda item number 16, celebration on the 30th anniversary. I just want to announce that that tomorrow we will be having a celebration held at the end of the council meeting, and just after the adoption of the summaries of the co-chairs. So really excited to present this celebration, and also is a moment for reflection and celebration for all of us in this beautiful, great partnership. So tomorrow at the very end of the session, we'll have an agenda item dedicated to the recognition of the people who has the wisdom and the vision to create this organization, as well as with all of our stakeholders and partners. Then agenda item number 15, which is the summary of the co-chairs. I want to announce that this summary will be sent by email to all council members and alternates in their advisory during this afternoon, so we can resume with the GEF Council meeting on this topic tomorrow. Any other observations before we go to the 31st LDCF SCCF council meeting, William?
No. I see Gabriela asking about some of the co-chairs. We will share it we will distribute it this afternoon so that everybody has it overnight and ready for tomorrow. Of course, we have one decision pending, but at least all the rest will be ready. And somebody is requesting clarification. The paragraph was deleted. I'm not sure what that question is, except that the work program had a paragraph that was very similar to what was being adopted in agenda item 4. And that is why that paragraph was taken out of the work program. But in any case, we'll be circulating an updated version, an amended version of the decision on UNDP so that everybody can see it in advance. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, William. And with this, we will close for the time being on the 61st GEF Council meeting and move over to the 31st LDCF SCCF Council meeting. And really delighted to welcome you all to this penultimate council meeting for the LDCF and the SCCF for the GEF 7 period. And a lot has happened, a lot of good news, a lot of work since we last met in June. As you know, all the IPCC released initial findings of its 6th assessment report in August, confirming just how serious the state of climate change is, and a grim reminder of how important the LDCF and SACFs are and will continue to be to many nations. You know, a big advancement since we met last June was that after a 2-year gap, the UK was able to host a very successful in-person climate COP in Glasgow, as we discussed it yesterday. This COP focuses largely on financial needs and climate actions, with many countries calling for the 100 billion to be provided in the climate finance annually. And I'm really thrilled by the immense success of the pledging event organized by the GEF Secretariat at the COP last month for the LDCF and SCCF. And thanks to you and your governments, we received record pledges for the LDCF totaling $430 million from 12 donor governments and 1 donor region. This successful pledging event is the start of an excellent and promising start for an ambitious adaptation work for GEF8. All the pledges are excellent news for the LDCF and for the vulnerable LDCs. It is my firm belief that the international community needs to continue to support all the adaptation funds under the financial mechanisms of the UNFCCC, including the SCCF, which can support the adaptation needs on non-LDCs, small island development states. Also, it is important to emphasize that the LDCF and SCCF support for adaptation falls far short of the large demand and needs placed upon LDCs and seeds. In our draft adaptation programming strategy for GEF8, you will find that we have further refined and focused the SCCF strategy to align the guidance and comments received from you. It is my hope that we will be receiving pledges for the SCCF soon as well. So we have a small but impactful work program lined up for your approval today, which will bring 3 additional LDCs to 10 million access mark for GEF7, Malawi, São Tomé and Príncipe, and the Solomon Islands. And I hope that during this meeting, we will also be hearing about important strategic topics, such as the evolving strategy for the LDCF and CCF for the period 2022-2026, and on IEO's evaluations of the SCCF. Before I close, I would like to say a few words of appreciation and gratitude towards the outgoing LDC chair and dear friend and supporter of the GEF, Mr. Sonan Wangti, Secretary of the National Environmental Commission of the Royal Government of Bhutan. Sonan has been heavily involved and has shared his personal insights on the LDC needs and priority this past year, showcasing Bhutan as a strong friend and partner to the GEF. On behalf of the entire GEF Council, I would like to take this opportunity to thank him for devoting his time and sharing.
It seems Carlos Manuel's communication has frozen.
William?
Maybe Chair, you want to take over in the meantime while he gets back?
Yes, I would like to take over, and we will let Carlos Manuel finish his address when he is able to come back. And in the meantime, we could look at the adoption of the agenda for this council meeting of the LDCF SCCF part. You have received a provisional agenda for consideration as document GEF/LDCF point SCCF 31/01 revision 02. Before we go to the adoption of the agenda, I would like to ask if there are items to add under other business. And I will check with you, William, if there are any requests for the floor.
Thank you. I don't see anybody requesting the floor.
Thank you very much. Then I invite the council to adopt the agenda for the meeting. Thank you very much. The agenda is adopted. I will now check if Carlos Manuel is back. He is back.
Yes, sorry for that. So over to you, Mete, and excuse me for the breakdown of my internet on my side. Thanks.
That's okay. We have, while you were away, we have adopted the agenda for the meeting. And I will invite you to chair the agenda item number 3, the opening remarks by the LDC chair.
Thank you so much, Matt, and once more, I apologize for the technical glitch. It is my great pleasure to invite Madeleine Diouf Sarr, the incoming chair of the Least Developed Countries Group, to give her opening remarks. Over to you, Madeleine. Welcome. I think you're muted.
Thank you for these opportunities, Chairperson. Excellency, distinguished council member, alternate member, and colleague, I would like to thank you, Mr. Carlos Manuel Rodriguez, CEO and Chairperson of the Global Environment Facility, for inviting me to address this 31 Council of the LDC's Countries Fund and the Special Climate Change Fund. This invitation is a testament to the long-standing partnership between the LDC group and the GEF, appreciating the importance that you continue to place on need, priority, and concern of LDCs. My name is Madeleine Diouf Sarr. I'm the head of Climate Change Division, Ministry of Environment and Sustainable Development in Senegal. And it is a pleasure and honor to share my perspective at this important council meeting as the incoming chair of the LDC group. I will be sharing the LDC group for 2 years, from January 22 to December 23. First, I very much appreciate the positive collaboration and partnership between the LDC group and the GEF, particularly with the LDCF, building upon the strong foundation left by my predecessor, Mr. Sonan Waddik from Bhutan, as you have mentioned it in your beginning statement. I look forward to doing my part to enhance these partnerships. As you know, as the world is relying from the untold human suffering from ongoing COVID-19 crisis, LDCs are worst impacted through disrupted production, income, value chain, and local enterprise. The COVID-19 pandemic has only worsened poverty and inequality in our country. This is in addition to the devastating impact of cyclone, flood, and usual heavy rain, drought, coastal erosion, many of which have been the most extreme in decades. Globally, the impact of climate change are only getting worse, and LDCs have fewer resources to cope. It is therefore crucial that the GEF continue to support a green recovery in LDC while delivering immediate climate adaptation and resilience benefit. Chairperson, I would like to congratulate GEF's Secretariat under the dynamic leadership of his CEO and chairperson for organizing a very successful ministerial dialogue and pledging sections at COP26 in Glasgow. The substantial pledge of $415 million of new funding for the LDCF is a show of support for the most vulnerable country, a manifest of your leadership. I sincerely would like to thank the 12 donor government, namely Belgium, the Belgium region of Walloon, Canada, Denmark, Estonia, France, Germany, Ireland, the Netherlands, Sweden, Switzerland, and the United States of America for their generous support to the LDCF. As you know, Chairperson, the LDC is a unique fund as the only climate change adaptation fund that is tailored for the specific needs and goals of LDC. We value this support and appreciate that it's improved predictability. However, it is important to reiterate that our needs are much greater. During the GEF aid period to meet the immediate and urgent need for climate change is required. We consider the LDC to be our fund. It is the only fund dedicated to support LDC where we don't have to compete with other developing countries that have more experiences and more capacity. The outcome of the pledging event gives me hope that we can meet the LDC target for GEF aid period and try to reach the 1 billion. Chairperson, also the SCCF is an important fund for LDCs, given his focus on innovation and private sector engagement. Given the scale of the climate adaptation challenge that LDC are facing, there is enormous potential and need to catalyzing innovation and private sector engagement, such as in area like access to energy, in particular clean energy and energy efficiency. Unfortunately, the SCCF is currently severely under-resourced. We need to collectively invest in this area of work, and we cannot afford to continue to underfund the SCCF. Let me underscore that the support from both the LDCF and the SCCF has and is delivering real and critical important results. For example, by reducing vulnerabilities for nearly 60 million people and bringing over 9 million hectares under climate resilient land management to adapt to our increasingly broken climate. The sum of the LDC and the SCCS represent a critical support for 1.1 billion people living in LDCs. This fund helped us to try and be prepared for the most worst impact to climate risk crisis. My own country, Senegal, has benefited from valuable LDC support of more than 40 million across 6 projects. Collectively, as the international communities, we need to renew our effort to ensure that both the LDCF and the SCCF have the necessary resources to support countries in need. It is also crucial to ensure that the support they provide target critical adaptation needs and that impact is sustainable. In doing so, we will be supporting shared resilience, opportunity, and prosperity for all the world. Thank you very much and wish you a successful council meeting. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. On the contrary, it's our great pleasure to have you in our council meeting. I hope this is the first of many other interactions with council, and on behalf of the council, the GEF Secretariat, and the larger GEF partnership, wish you the best in your new capacities. your leadership, your counsel and wisdom will be extremely important as we look forward into a stronger LDCF, SCCF. So thank you so much. Also, this is a great opportunity for me to thank the donors to LDCF and the pledges that we had in COP26. This is extremely encouraging. Before joining the GEF, I witnessed at the field level, at the country level, the impact, the positive impact that this little, but very strategic, very efficient fund has in many developing countries with regards to climate adaptation, to regards to food security. We, based on the new strategy, we look forward to not only upscale, but also diversify the climate adaptation actions that we will be doing. Also, my full recognition to Shizuru Aoki for her wonderful job in leading this effort under the wisdom and counsel of Gustavo Fonseca. Fabulous job done by all of them. So thank you so much, Madeline, for joining us today. Again, the best wishes from our side.
Thank you. Yes.
Have a good day. Thanks. So with this, we go to agenda item number 4, which is the work program for the LDCF. I would like to invite Gustavo Fonseca to present the work program, which is in document GEF/LDCF SCCF 31st/03 work program for the least developed countries fund. Gustavo, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Carlos Manuel, and thanks to the LDC chair for the great remarks. It is my real pleasure to introduce the work program for the LDCF for consideration by the council. The work program, as Carlos Manuel mentioned, includes 3 projects requesting a total of 19.62 million of project financing and agency fees. The projects are in Malawi, in São Tomé and Príncipe, and the Solomon Islands. If you approve this work program, the number of LDCs that will have received support from LDCF in the GEF 7 period will reach 44 countries, or 94% of all the LDCs. Of these, 33 LDCs will have successfully accessed up to 10 million of the initial cap that they had. Another 6 LDCs will have access to over $9 million. All projects in this work program have confirmed the alignment with the needs and priorities identified in NAPs, National Adaptation Programs of Action, the NAPAs, and also through the NDCs and National Sustainable Development Strategies. Sectors and systems addressed across these projects address agriculture and food security, water and natural resources management, and also resilient economic infrastructure. Nature-based solutions are also promoted. The cohort of projects presented here also identified various potential opportunities to mitigate the impacts of COVID-19 to deliver climate resilience benefits and contribute towards a green and blue economy. By the end of the GEF 7, the GEF aims to serve all 47 LDCs. At the moment, there are 3 LDCs that have not yet accessed resources in the GEF 7 period. These are Comoros, Madagascar, and Niger. The Secretariat has continued to reach out to these countries, and it's likely that they will indeed submit a proposal for the June 2022 work program. This work program, while supporting all technically cleared projects, is the smallest that we had so far. 2 factors have influenced the composition of this program. First, our outreach prioritized the LDCs that had not yet accessed the LDCF in this period, with our philosophy of having everybody addressed before we move on to a second round, or LDCs that had resources remaining under the initial $10 million cap that we have set at the beginning of the GEF 7 cycle. The second factor is that we had a modest resource availability in the trust fund. This work program is utilizing the major share of resources available at the time that we had to constitute the work program. It's worth noting that most of the pledge contributions since December 2020 are expected to be received from September 2021 and beyond. We recently, as it was recognized already, had a very successful LDCF pledge meeting in Glasgow, and thanks to the donor support, it's never too much to really recognize the great work that you all and support that you all have put behind resourcing the LDCF. Thanks to all who have recently contributed. Regarding additional programming in GEF 7, with one work program remaining, we will prioritize support to all LDCs to reach the initial caps, including 3 LDCs that have not yet accessed the GEF 7 period. If significantly more resources become available in early 2022, we will notify countries about the possibility of additional GEF 7 programming that can still make the June 2022 work program, given the urgent priorities of countries to receive support to help with the adaptation efforts. I'd like to point out that the Malawi project has identified 2 GCF projects that it will coordinate with. This is part of the engagement that we are having with the GCF under the LTV to ensure that there is complementarity and scaling up of practices and impact. For São Tomé and Príncipe and Solomon Islands, LDCF is currently the only means of climate change adaptation from the UNFCCC financial mechanism, as the GCF has not yet supported climate change adaptation in these countries. This map shows the countries in the current work program. It's very simple: São Tomé, Malawi, and Solomon Islands. And here we can see all the countries that have received resources from the LDCF in the GEF 7 cycle to this date, including this work program. The numbers in bracket indicate in what GEF 7 work program the country received funding, this being the 7th work program. Here you can see the full picture to date from the very first work program in the cycle to today, all the way to this particular moment. I'm showing here the volume of resources programmed for each one of these work programs. That you can see there's a lot of variation, which again illustrates the question of predictability of resources and the need to have more stability in the way that the LDCF is resourced over time. Here we can have a closer look at the 3 projects in the work program, which span 3 LDCs and 2 SIDS. The LDCF financing for the Solomon Islands is 5 million, for Malawi is 4.8 million, and for São Tomé and Príncipe is 9.8 million. The agencies included are the World Bank, UNDP, and the African Development Bank. Recognizing again that co-financing under the current rules is not required for LDCF, these projects are still expected to mobilize approximately $45 million, meaning that for every dollar that the LDCF is providing, it's going to be matched by $2.5 in leveraged financing provided by other sources. Here we can see the LDCF agency distribution in GEF 7 and since the inception of the fund. As you will notice here, during GEF 7, the Secretariat has made an effort to engage with more agencies. The figure on the left, which includes the current work program, shows a much more balanced distribution, with no agency having more than approximately 1/3 of the portfolio. And UNDP has 33%, followed by FAO with 29%, and AFDB with the 3rd largest share of 12%, followed by UNEP and other agencies. All 3 projects respond to the ambition and the requirements of the GEF policy on gender equality. They propose and outline plans and preliminary entry points to addressing women's barriers to decision-making and other gender responsive measures to promote women's empowerment. All 3 projects explicitly state that they expect to develop sex disaggregated and gender sensitive indicators. And in addition, all three projects expect to contribute to closing the gender gaps related to women's participation in decision-making, as well as generating socioeconomic benefits or services for women. Two projects specifically highlight that expect to contribute to closing gender gaps in the access and control over natural resources. And in line with the GEF policy on gender equality, these three projects will be required to carry out a gender analysis during project preparation, as well as developing gender action plans and providing further details on proposed sex disaggregated indicators prior to the CEO endorsement stage. The three projects in the LDCF work program will generate results across the adaptation core indicators as follows: 545,000 direct beneficiaries, of which 259.5, nearly 48% are women or female. 133 policy plans and development frameworks that mainstream climate resilience, 128.5 thousand hectares of land under climate resilient management, and over close to 50,000 people with enhanced capacity to identify climate risks and engage with adaptation measures, of which 27,000 or 54% are female. I would like to close this presentation by highlighting a recent study, just a few days, has been out on international, a couple of months, in international public finance for climate change adaptation in Africa. Climate-related finance commitments from bilateral and multilateral funders to African countries, including regional allocations, amounted to close to $50 million, and 49.9 to be more precise, that were dispersed from 2014 to 2018. Of this total, 19.2 billion was earmarked for adaptation activities, equivalent to 31% of all public development finance to climate adaptation. As you can see in here, the GEF is a significant source of climate change adaptation financing to Africa, and provided resources that are now comparable to 36% of all resources provided by the GCF, which is a climate dedicated fund. Overall, more adaptation related finance to Africa was provided as loans, 57% of these figures you see here, than grants. And grants were 42%, which makes the GEF support in LDCs in Africa of particular importance, given that resource flows from the GEF are almost entirely dispersed as grants. So this highlights the importance that we have in the financial mechanism of the Paris Agreement when it deals with support to climate change adaptation to LDCs. With this, I thank you very much and turn it over to you, Carlos Manuel, for the rest of the agenda.
Thank you so much, Gustavo, for your presentation on the LDCF work program. And with these, I would like to open the floor to council members. As usual, William will help us with the list of speakers.
Thank you very much. Sano has requested the floor. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Gustavo. This is very informative presentation, and it really helps a lot. Thank you so much for that. So I have a little question. Your presentation was telling that it is contributing to reducing the gender gap. My question is, did you measure what was the gap, and from where you started to reduce and where it is now, and what is the target or anything, something? Can you kindly elaborate a little bit more? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would anyone else like to take the floor? Liesl, you have the floor.
Can you hear me? If there's a problem, I'll take the video off. I'm hoping my connection's a bit better now.
We can hear
you very well.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for the work program, and Gustavo, yes, I agree with Sano. Thank you very much for a very good presentation on the work program. We would like to approve it, but we would like to share our surprise at the low number of projects in the work program. While we do recognize the main reasons for this, there's perhaps just a couple of things we would like to understand about the process a bit better. It was our understanding that there were some project proposals that could be in the pipeline. I wanted to ask, are there no projects in the pipeline any longer? And if there are, why have they not been forwarded to be included in this work program? We also note, and correct me if I'm wrong, that not all available funds were programmed into this work program. If this is the case, could you perhaps elaborate on why, beyond the two reasons that you've already given, obviously? We're very interested perhaps to hear if you have any information on why the 3 countries that have not accessed funding so far have. It's enlightening to understand if are there any specific barriers that have been preventing anything like that. I was interested to hear you say that if there are additional funds available in 2022, there would be a possibility to include more projects in the upcoming work program. Obviously, Denmark's interested to hear, given the grant that we've just dispersed here in December 21, if that's not already going to put you in a stronger position to enable this to happen. We obviously hope that the June 2022 work program will have a larger number of projects now that there've been a lot of commitments from a number of donors. We're very, very happy to hear about all the elements that Gustavo presented on gender, and as we've mentioned before in the GEF meetings, we look forward to hearing about some of the concrete results on the gender aspects that are being integrated into the designs of the projects, and specifically the 3 projects in this work program. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Karin has the floor.
Thank you. And also Sweden can support the program as presented. And thank you, Gustavo, for a very interesting presentation about the projects. We're also very happy to hear about the gender aspects that you elaborated on in the project processes and so on, and looking forward to hear about results on that. Sweden appreciates that outreach has been taking place in relation to countries that haven't accessed LDC funds in GEF 7, so that is good. Also, obviously, a bit concerned that the program is so small because of lack of resources. I think, but I mean, we are partly, it's partly due to us, I guess, because in the period that we are talking about, I think the Swedish funds for 2021 hadn't also been dispersed. And I think that we will have to look also to be able to, so the funds will come early, probably hopefully earlier in the year to come, because since you mentioned that there is a pipeline of projects, obviously it would be good to have them put into the work program in the next work program. So we will try to help in that respect as well. Well, thank you.
Thank you very much. Stephanie, you have the floor.
Merci. Je vais m'exprimer en français. Nous remercions le secrétariat, les agences et les points focaux pour ce work programme. Nous saluons la très large couverture des PMA qu'il permet d'atteindre. Et nous souhaitons globalement réaffirmer notre soutien au LDCF, pour lequel la France a annoncé une nouvelle contribution de 20 millions d'euros lors de la COP 26. Merci.
Merci, Stephanie. René, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you so much. Our seat welcomes the 7th work program for the LDCF under the GEF 7 cycle. During the persisting COVID-19 pandemic, we especially appreciate the work program's aim of addressing the need to support people, communities, ecosystems, and their vulnerabilities, as well as enhance livelihoods and support policy and capacity needs. In addition, we appreciate the risk analysis and risk mitigation efforts made in relation to the pandemic. Moreover, we welcome the contribution to the goals and objectives of the 2018-2022 GEF programming strategy on adaptation to climate change, that the projects in the 3 countries of Malawi, Sao Tome and Principe, and the Solomon Islands will be making. And we note with pleasure the factors that were considered for enhanced strategic LDCF prioritization, including the geographical balance provided LDCF support. We're also pleased that 2 of the 3 countries are located in Africa and 2 of the 3 are SIDS. Thank you.
Thank you very much, René. Annette, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. And Germany welcomes the work program and would like to expressly thank the staff of the GEF Secretariat, but also of the countries involved and the agencies involved for all the efforts that were put in despite the very difficult circumstances under COVID-19. This shows how valuable and relevant the work of the LDCF is, and thanks very much for this extremely evocative graph you showed. Building resilience and diversifying livelihoods in the vulnerable communities have been crucial before and become even more important now in the times of the crisis. We see the LDCF continue to be a key factor to support blue, green and resilient recovery efforts in the LDCs and remain fully committed to its work. With regards to this work program, we welcome the proposed resource allocation across focal areas and regions, especially the focus on projects in Africa and SIDS is appreciated. We highly welcome that all 3 countries will reach the funding caps now for GEF 7. We further appreciate that 1 additional country that has not yet accessed LDCF resources during GEF 7 is part of the work program, and thank the Secretariat for its outreach and efforts. I have 2 questions regarding the concentration issue. You very prominently described that UNDP actually, the ratio is now decreasing, which is welcome, but it still remains rather high. And are there efforts undertaken for other agencies to come in, for example, the regional banks, a little bit more? I mean, AFDB now is taking quite a prominent role. Are there other regional banks that could come in as well? And on co-financing, this ratio appears to be decreasing and is significantly lower than in previous work programs. This could possibly be due to the COVID-19 restrictions. But maybe you could elaborate a little bit more on that. As always, we have a couple more comments which we will send in writing. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Shala, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. And because this is the first time I'll be taking the floor during this meeting, I wanted to say thank you to the GEF Secretariat for preparing these documents and for the good work that was done on the ground at COP26 to organize the pledging event and to make awareness of the good work of the LDCF and to reiterate the United States pledge of 25 million at that event. And we hope that these types of events and the level of funding that we saw in Glasgow can continue moving forward so that we do see a little bit more regularity and evenness of support over the different years and GEF replenishment cycles. With that, I would say on the work program, we would also like to support the work program and appreciate the recommendation to receive additional information on the ongoing outreach to the 3 remaining LDC countries. I think that would be helpful to hear at what stage they're at or what efforts are still needed. Very much appreciate the geographic balance in this very small work program, including the inclusion of 2 small island developing states. That's great to see. And the focus on ecosystem-based adaptation and efforts to develop locally accessible finance for adaptation projects is very important. And I was pleased to see that included in a couple of the projects presented. And additionally, the engagement of the private sector and note at the local and national level is important to see, and was very much welcome in these projects. With that, I thank you very much, and I'll conclude there.
Thank you very much. Shala, Tom, you have the floor.
Thank you, William. As you all know, we are very supportive of least developed countries and also of small island developing states. So we truly welcome this work program. Yes, it's 20 million. Yes, it's 3 countries only. That doesn't mean that it's not impactful. So thank you so much for bringing forward. Just like others, we were very, very happy that the GEF and the GCF were at COP26, where we were able to, shortly after our federal elections, to announce a 37.5 million contribution to the LDCF to continue good work to help these important countries and partners. I have only one question for Chiz. It has to do with LDC 5 in Doha on the 23rd to the 27th of January 2022. I know that a lot of council members have asked about, marketing, publicity, and all of those things. And we were wondering if there will be some sort of event that the GEF would do in order to continue to highlight the good work of the LDCF in support of these important countries on adaptation, private sector involvement, all of those wonderful stuff. So thank you.
Thank you very much. That seems to end the list of speakers for now. Thank you very much. Back to you.
Thanks, William. And with this, I will pass it over to Gustavo and Chiz for the responses and reactions of the questions and comments.
Thank you very much, Carlos Manuel, and thanks to all the council members who contributed very important remarks, insights, and also posed a few questions. Let me start talking about actually the so-called pipeline and the resource availability. There wasn't any pipeline beyond what we have proposed. So everything that was technically cleared was funded. Of course, we were aware that the resources would be relatively limited in this current work program. And we are working very closely with information that we received from the trustee in terms of the timing, because there is, of course, a lag between the pledges and the contributions. And the contributions that have been projected. And we hope that some of the $400 million and $13 million, $413 million pledge that were committed in Glasgow maybe also start trickling in at some point in early 2022, so that we can use that for additional projects that come in. But again, this timing of resources and the development of a pipeline is something that's it's quite challenging, because we don't want to have, and this has happened in the past, if you recall, a long line of projects in a pipeline that eventually age in terms of design, in terms of the context on the ground, and we want to use information that's current and designs that really address the context as it happens. And with climate change impacts now, as you know, things are moving very quickly. So we have been in touch, and that remits to the question that was made in regards to what's to be expected for the next work program. Indeed, we have committed to the best of our ability to bring the last 3 remaining LDCs into the work program for June 2022. We know, for example, that Madagascar, one of the three that hasn't yet received fundings. There are 2 projects that are being prepared as we speak for submission in the next work program with 2 different agencies for a total of their entire cap of $10 million. And the similar discussions are being held with the other 2 countries. Sometimes it's a question of also how far they are along in terms of the preparation of a viable concept. And we want to fund projects that have all the standards that we require, both from the technical design, materials of change, as well as comply with all the policies, including the gender equality process, the gender equality policy. On Germany and co-financing, thanks, Annette. Co-financing is, again, co-financing we track on a portfolio level because that's how the aspiration has been articulated. It's not a project by project, a work program by work program, but rather on a portfolio-wide level. Again, reminding that LDCF does not require co-financing. Indeed, this work program, the available co-financing, expected co-financing was rather small. And I think you were right in guessing that a lot of this, and particularly in Africa, is due to the impacts of COVID-19. Africa was, and SID, LDCs in particular, and SIDs, were disproportionately affected in terms of the economies by the pandemic. And so that's what we are seeing now, but still it's quite a significant match given everything else that's happening with local economies. We are watching the sources and tracking the amounts of co-financing very carefully. And we'll be able to provide you with complete picture at the portfolio level after we have the last work program, the June 22 work program in place. On your other question, Annette, on agency distribution, we have been in outreach with agencies and we have encouraged the participation of 2 MDBs in this particular work program. I think that points to a healthy evolution in the implementation landscape. Generally speaking, more agencies have built their adaptation expertise compared with the early stages of LDCF and SCCF, when only a few UN agencies, such as UNDP, had expertise in adaptation and climate, internal climate expertise. The situation is changing, and we'll continue to do outreach with the countries and with the agencies. Tom, thanks a lot for your suggestion on the LDC 5 conference in Doha. You have brought this directive to us a couple of times before, and we have followed up. So we are planning to have a small delegation if it takes place in person. We don't know yet because, as you know, it's in February. Yes, January now. And then we'll see, in what form we can participate. We will try to organize a dedicated event for the GEF to showcase what we are doing with our adaptation funds. It's been a little challenging in the beginning, as you probably all know. The GEF doesn't have its own legal personality or legal entity. It had been a little difficult to get ourselves registered as the GEF in this conference because of that limitation, but we managed to, thanks to the staff working very hard on this, to have the GEF delegation registered. Welcoming Sheila's comments from the US on the private sector engagement and access to climate finance at the local level. Let me point out that the Malawi project in particular, the design intends to support the creation of a local adaptation finance facility, which aims to help mobilize private and public sector financing for local solutions. On the questions about gender, how it's being addressed and tackled and monitored, and reducing gender gaps. This finding on closing the gender gaps based on discussions that take place at the PIF development level, particularly looking at current vulnerabilities and constraints that are faced by women at the project's site level, and looking at how differential access to resources is taking place and how the projects propose to address these differential aspects of resource management, such as looking at improving access to clean water by women, supporting women farmers, and so forth, depending on the context of the project. We also looking in the design on how the focus can be placed on empowering women in decision making, because that's what is needed. Going beyond women as beneficiaries only, and more towards them taking more active participation and being more active partners in the project process. Additional work on baselining, of course, it needs to be undertaken in the development of gender action plans and the assessments that are developed during project preparation. I think I've exhausted the questions to my better ability here, but if I did not, please let me know. Over to you, Carlos Manuel.
Thanks, Cheese, over to you.
Cheers.
Thank you. I think all the questions were addressed, and just to underscore Tom's question, yeah, as Gustavo said, we're in the process of trying to organize perhaps a site event, possibly in partnership with the LDC group, so that we can showcase what the GEF has been doing to support the LDCs through not just the LDCF, but the other programs that we have under the GEF umbrella and partnership. Thank you.
Thanks, Cheese, for that. William, do you have any other speakers on the list?
No more speakers, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thanks. With this, we have completed the discussion of this agenda item number 4, work program for the LDCF. Now I would like to invite Council to adopt the draft decision that is included in document GEF/LDCF SCCF 31st/03. I don't see anybody asking for the floor. So,
Carlos Manuel, sorry to interrupt. The same, like the work program for the trust fund, just note that the last paragraph will be dropped as well.
Oh, okay, good point. I forgot to mention that. Okay, so with that observation, the decision has been approved. Thank you so much to all. So with this, we finish today's GEF and LDCF SCCF Councils meeting. I thank you all for being right on time and to address the many different issues. I would like to thank my co-chair Mete for her fabulous work throughout the day. We will be sending communications to you all with regards to the pending issues that we will address tomorrow, as tomorrow is our last day. We will finish the LDCF and SCCF 31st meeting will be tomorrow. We will be working on the summary of the co-chairs and additional information coming from today's decision. So with this, I would like to close today's sessions. I would like to thank everybody. And as usual, we reconvene tomorrow, 7 a.m. DC time. Thank you so much for a very productive day. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Muchas
everybody.
gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you. Muito obrigada.
See.
Thank you.
Gracias. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Bye bye. See you
Bye,
tomorrow.
everyone.
Thank you.